Hauka I peña mati pe cham. Menyo wea. Pe nyo we kuyupi nyo we pampi ni kanap. Ni maya khan ni wa chunyet. Ni kanap mayum nyo we nyuup. Pe yi ti pe ni makek. Ana Gloria Rodriguez. Mat perhau kaman. Nyopum Norma Mesa. Nahi kaman. Nyopum Gil. La Huerta kaman. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Stan Rodriguez. I'm from the Santa Isabel Band of the Ipai Nation. And we're here, this panel that we have today is a presentation on the missions of Baja, resistance and destruction. We'll be talking about the missions as we go down the peninsula all the way down to La Paz. So in this panel today, we have Kumiai from, we say Matkek, the other side of the border. We have Ana Gloria Rodriguez. She is Kumiai from the San Jose de la Zora Reservation. Norma Mesa, she is Kumiai from the Neji Reservation. And Gilberto, I call him Hermano, my brother over here. He is from the La Huerta Reservation. So we're all going to be sharing about the things that have happened on the other side of the border and also on this side. We'll be talking in English, we'll be talking in Kumiai, and we'll be talking in Spanish. We have translators here to help. So, let us begin. Oh, real quick, the picture that you see here is the mission that is over by La Misión, the one that was attacked by Hot Nij, or Black Dog. And we're going to be talking a little bit more about that. The missions in Baja and Baja Sur. So when we talk about the critical mission studies, one of the things we've been focusing on is Alta California. However, many people don't realize that before encroachment came into our area, Baja and Baja Sur, I mean, they were the targets of missionization in the territories. A lot of people don't really understand what was the reason for the missions. Now, when the Spaniards first came, I have to say this, that when we talk about the conquistadors, the Spaniards were not conquistadors. They never had the numbers to take our people out. What they were masters at was manipulating, pulling one group against the other, and using them to fight their battles. And then the Spanish would go in and clean it up. And then the other thing that the Spaniards were good at doing is consolidating that power. When we talk about the civilizations that were in Mexico and Peru and all these other places, like the Inca, the Aztecs, and I just got to say, Mike Conley Mishquish, he wrote a paper on this. It was an excellent paper. I learned a lot of that from Mike over here. He's right here in the back having a drink. But I just want to say, Chachaya Khan, we praise you for what you brought out. So anyway, one of the things is, the societies, like the Mexica Society or the Incan Society, these were centralized governments. So they had a caste system, the ruling caste, the middle caste, and then the servant caste or the slave caste. So what happened was that people were used to sending the wealth up to the ruling caste, and the ruling caste would then divvy it out. That's how things were traditionally done. So when the Spaniards were able to overthrow these governments, one of the things that they did was they took the daughters of the head people, like Montezuma's daughters, and they kept them as wives. So the people were used to sending that money up, and since the wives were Mexica or other different groups, they were used to that coming up. The problem with that is the Spaniards would send most of the wealth to Spain. So the people were I mean, it was getting more and more difficult just to survive. I mean, it was really difficult for them, hard for them. The other thing that the Spaniards would do is they would get the warriors of the people that were defeated and use them. Remember when the Spaniards first came, they fought against the Tlaxcala. You know this. Then the Tlaxcala became the allies of the Mexica. And then later on, when the Mixton War took place, and this was just a few years, but they were almost able to defeat the Spaniards. The Spaniards used Tlaxcala and Mixteco warriors to attack. After they took over Mixton, or that wasn't the name of the tribe. What was it, Kashkan? Kashkan. After they were able to overthrow the Kashkan, they used the warriors in the next battle, which was the Chichimeca War. And this lasted about 40 years. Spaniards were almost defeated in this. But one of the things that happened, one of the problems that they were having, the Spaniards were having, was these governments were not centralized like they were used to. You could take out one chief and then somebody else would come up. Man or woman, didn't matter. They would take up the fight. And they were much more fluid. They would move up and down wherever they went in their areas. So the Spaniards devised a system using the missions. So they weaponized the missions. And they used that to put down people. So when they came into the Californias, they had owned that system. And you've heard some of the atrocities, some of the horror stories of what took place at the missions. You heard some of these things. How they would take the children, and the mothers would want to be with their children, then they would take the women. And the men had their families there, so the men would go in there. So they would separate the men and the women. That's how they would control. So anyway, these were some of the things that were happening. You see all the missions that were here in Baja and Baja Sur. Next one, please. So the native people whose land was impacted by the Spanish encroachment in Baja and Baja Sur were the Kumiai, the Cocopa, not too much the Cocopa, but the Pai Pai, Quiliwa, Cochimín, Monqui, Guaycura, and the Piricu. All the way at the bottom was the Piricu. Go ahead, next one, please. So the Kumiai reside on both sides of the international border. You know, this is the traditional territory of our people, and the reservations in the United States are Barona, Campo, Quillapay, Iñaja, Cosmet, Jamul, La Posta, Manzanita, Mesa Grande, San Pascual, San Isabel, Sequan, Viejas. There's also Captain Grande, the Laguna Reservation, and parts of Paula, or Ipai, from San Felipe or San Isabel. And also Fort Yuma has Desert Kumiai over there. So our area it's spread all over, from the valleys to the mountains to the desert to parts of the Colorado River. Next one, please. So Neji, do you recognize that lady? Norma, usted es muy famosa. Gordita. Mishib, Chahayhan. Okay. And then Kumiai and Baja, here's another famous person, another warrior. Where'd you get that mask, Marta? Anyway, the Kumiai reservations in Baja, or comunidades indígenas, ¿verdad? ¿Sí? Ejidos indígenas. Okay. La Huerta, La Necua, Neji, and San Jose de la Zora. Neji being the closest to the border, just right across from Bayalongo. Mm-hmm. And even, watch this, they're going to get mad. They say there's 4. I say there's more. A ver, tenemos otras comunidades Kumiai, ¿verdad? San José de Tecate, Guaje de las Tunas, Peña Blanca. Nyepte Neji. How? Y también, and I'm going to start talking Spanish again. So, also, past La Huerta, Santa Catarina, Pai Pai, Pum, Coash Kumiai. Kowash Kumiai. Tipea Kwar, ha? Puk Puk. Ha. These are, and also Santa Catarina, they're Pai Pai and Kowash Kumiai. They don't like calling themselves Kumiai, but they talk the way that we talk, with an accent. Anyway.
Kowash.
Kowash. And Kowash means the red painted ones. And then San Jose de la Zora Matperjau. Okay. So La Huerta, this is the grandmother of Gilberto Teodora Cuero. So she was very famous. She was the leader of that community. She was one of the head people out there. Next one. And then San Jose de la Zora. This lady who's here, Gloria Castañeda, she was a cultural leader of her reservation, fluent speaker, along with Teodora Cuero, both of them fluent speakers in the language. They were both singers. When usually it's a men who will sing, but when none of the men were singing, they picked up the rattle and they kept it. This lady is also Martha's mother. So she's the one that taught Martha how to make baskets, along with Martha's grandmother and great-grandmother. She passed that knowledge. She was the one that taught me the creation story. We would sit together and she would tell me these things. Incredible people. And I asked, why are you using the rattle? I mean, why do you do it? It's supposed to be a man's instrument. And she said, she's singing it because she does not want these songs to die. Said as soon as a young man steps forward, she'll teach him those songs and pass that rattle to them. And that's what they, that's what they did. Martha, did you want to say anything about that?
No.
Okay. Bill Ma. Okay. Continue, please. The missions that were in Kumiai territory, Misión El Descanso, Misión Guadalupe, Misión San Miguel de Arcángel de la Frontera. That sounds pretty cool, huh? Misión Santo Tomás de Aquino. So these are some of the missions that were in Kumiai territory. Now, how many of you are going with us tomorrow? Okay, we're going to go and see one of the missions that was attacked and burned down by the Kumiai. It's pretty much been left there. And they're going to be talking about that. Now, do you see these people who are... Norma, Niepti Pecha, Ima, Mokenyue.
Apto.
Kubu.
Mi mamá. No se puede mirar.
My Pecha.
¿Cuál fue?
Mad Med.
Nitel.
Ha.
Nitel.
Ipa, ¿no?
Ipa.
I Tipe. Tipe.
Ipa.
Ima.
Map.
Oh, yeah. Huh.
Pugnaches Mayuma, Nevada Niepo Mash, Tecate.
Oh.
Okay.
The Peñut.
How?
Wakur.
Next one, please. Then the missions in Pai Pai territory, Mission Santa Catarina, Mission San Vicente, and the mission in Santa Catarina, this was one of the ones that was burned down by Pai Pai and Kowash Kumiai. Gilberto, antes usted visita, ¿dónde tiene misión? En Santa Catarina.
Sí.
Los Pai Pai y Kowash ataque.
No existe la misión ya. No
¿Pero
hay.
pedacito?
No,
No,
no más, ¿verdad?
no más.
A what? Okay. And the Pai Pai speak a human language very similar to Yavapai. So they speak like the Yavapais. As a matter of fact, they came from up north. They came down the Colorado River. And that's a story, but we'll talk about that later. Okay, next one. The Kiliwa. And the Kiliwa, they live in the reservation Arroyo Leon. And they used to have a singer. Ahorita no tienen más cantadores, ¿verdad?
No.
Pero antes de Trinidad o Chute.
Sí, hoy no, ya no. jóvenes, 2, 3.
Jóvenes, pero ellos saben cómo lo hacen por cantar, parece Trinidad.
Poquito.
Poquito.
Bien.
Okay, did you all understand that? Poquito. All right. So Trinidad Ochute was the lead singer for his reservation. The Kiliwas only have one reservation. The Pai Pais, ¿cuántos reservas tienen los Pai Pais? Tienen tres.
3.
Tres. And the Pai Pais is Santa Catalina, San Isidoro, and Hamao. Okay. And the Kiliwa is Arroyo Leon. One of the problems that they've had over in the Kiliwa reservation is a lot of people sold their land. It's different over there. Not like the reservations over here where you cannot sell it. Over there they have the hectarios and they can sell it. But anyway, I used to hear this man sing. I loved listening to his singing. He was a great singer. Okay, and these were the missions that were in Kiliwa territory. Next one. And then the Cochimi. One of the things about the Cochimi is their land was huge. And there was a reason why their territory was so large. Because they had very little resources there. Allá en la terreno, los Cochimí, es puro desierto, ¿verdad?
Todo el desierto, ¿no? Se supone que es Kuchimí.
Ajá.
Pero lo que es de ellos es solamente los límites de la misión, ahorita en la actualidad. No más, solamente la misión.
La misión.
No más.
En Santa Gertrudis.
Es Santa Gertrudis.
¿Y San Borge?
¿Dónde están?
San Borja, la misión San
San
Borja.
Borja.
San Borja.
Ajá. Pero también es igual, solamente los límites de la misión es lo que tienen hoy.
Mejor, kidnappen.
So the people who own the land is just around the mission. That's the only thing they have right now available for them.
So almost all their land was taken away. And if you notice, look how many missions were put in Cochimí territory. These people were devastated. They were devastated out there. So, have any of you ever been to San Francisco de la Sierra? Beautiful, the rock paintings out there. The history going down into the canyon. A lot of history out there. And I just want to say, we've gone down to that area. We've gone to those reservations. And one of the things that we noticed, like the people who are sitting here, I'll just say the Kumiai people, we still have our song cycles. People still sing. Paul Cuero over here, lead singer, in Tokok, bird songs. Jamie is a singer. In San Jose de la Zora, Queñume, wildcat singing. Other different kinds of song cycles. Norma, I think your son, su hijo, canta, ¿verdad?
Y nieta.
Ajá. Oh, Pamuch,
Juac.
Hobak, Chio, Madmer, Juan Carranza, Shkuya, Mau,
Nat.
Puk.
Uh-huh.
The one who taught me how to sing, he was Kumiai from Baja. And he also taught her grandchildren how to sing, 2 of her grandsons. So all these song cycles are still being used, but you leave Kumiai and Pai Pai and Kiliwa territory, the narrative changes. The Cochimí, we went down there, and no one speaks. ¿Cuántas personas hablan Cochimí? Nadie. Una persona sabe frases, ¿verdad? Poquito. Allá en Guerrero Negro. Más o menos. Pero muy poquitos.
De los registros de los misioneros.
So there's a man, he's Cochimí, he's in Guerrero Negro, which is on the border of Baja and Baja Sur. And he knows a few phrases, but for the most part, the language is dormant. I'm not going to say extinct because the people are not extinct, but the language is dormant. And the traditional songs are gone. Nobody sings them. When we went down to Santa Gertrudis, which is the mission over there, one of the old men was talking about how none of the young people are learning the songs and picking up the instruments. And we said, well, what kind of rattles? He goes, no, the violin. So they had already, there's always been a shift. And it appeared to be more like Sonoran Catholicism. kind of like what the Yaquis do with the matachin and things like that. So anyway, all these missions were in this area. And I'm sure you've been to a number of those missions out there. The next one, please. Monkey. I call them monkeys. Monkey. The mission of San Juan Bautista Luis. They said that this group and the Guaycura spoke a language similar. We don't know because there's nobody around anymore. Nobody around that follows this culture. Next one. Guaycura. This was below the Cochimí, a larger group. These were the missions, Misión Nuestra Señora de Pilar and Misión Santa Rosa de las Palmas. Now the Guaycura and the Piricu fought against encroachment. They fought against the Spaniards. They are not here as a tribal group anymore. Most of them died out, and most of it was due to diseases brought in. It was the diseases that took out many of our people. And then the last one, the Piricu, Misión Esteros de las Palmas. And the Piricu, are at the tip of Baja Sur. And one of the first Spaniards to meet with them was Hernan Cortez. And remember, he's the one that's credited with taking down the Mexica Empire. And he said this group was the most fierce fighters he had ever come up with. As a matter of fact, they ran them off the land, the Piricu people. So this speaks to the warrior nature of our people, that we did not just allow things to happen, that we did fight back. So this is just a little bit of a narrative of Baja and Baja Sur. So now what I would like to do is I would like to take it to our subject matter experts from Baja. Listos.
Norma.
Norma.
Ñache.
How? Quema.
Auka. Ñapa nor ñap shimus misquisqui has ñanishi. Ñat pi mandiun matu ha wawi. Pil hikut shit nahi with she. The cat will pay wa mat will pay ni mandiu. Now what? Sas the pay hikut hap yakor with Franciscano with hikut with padres. The hap taniu the pay a what do? Ñapa miui tu ha hat kunil hui caballo negro with perro negro hikut Malay. Caballo negro sheep nip shimus uji kwaha to waju kwaha nip tapat knat uji sacerdote kiti hap homo ya wap nua ya wat nat ti wil tanwa nyama wat to wat ya wat pilkhimi nyoi sa wai pilkhimi mat show sa wai ya wat mat ko tay show nip ya wap ti pe ni wa marbo Panteón quét namo show tanway sa wai nipe nyapa na tampao knap hikut ayip tu ayip ipa mo ipa hanam kerkwara o hikua kerkwar mo ipa ayip akat tu ipat ak sui to hel ayip tu eran sacerdote iglesia shin show taniu yom ipat taniu hat kunil we yu tanwai kis mai with to what you ku shin to what nipit I han ma wa ipat pia yip chmukhai homo kerkwar suyo homo ti pia khikwa suyo homo ti pia nyam kerkwar tanwai yu yawa yu ti wi tanwai khoi ot matamar yam khap homo show tanwai Kena nyawat pi nyuai, mer nyuai ha nyawat ti pay. Nyakor pues ikut tanwai khap homo pi nyuai sa wai pit nyuai ti pay kerkwarui nyawat ti mai kha su pay homo di virgen wit kunama ikut khap. Nyawat su pay homo pil khakwas nimit Pero, aguay, piñuey, marihuey. Buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Normalicia Mesa Calles. Mesa Calles, Anishiñat, Mishquish, Cuijas, Clan, Huichway. En mi comunidad platican que mi tata platicaba que nunca entraron los señores. Llegaron 2, no sé en qué año. Ahí está una misión que nos desbarataron. Allí existe, pero nadie sabe porque nadie tiene que ir a invadir terrenos de nuestra comunidad.
Okay. Can you guys hear me? Yeah.
Talk louder.
Huh?
Talk louder. You
Oh, okay. So Norma Mesa, she's saying, well, she's the Norma is the Mishquish clan, and then from Ha'a, from Ha'a. Ha'a. Well, that's another part of the same reservation, Nehi. So Nehi is like the big reservation, but they have like a small like villages inside Nehi, I guess, right? Como comunidades dentro de Nehi, ¿no?
Es toda una comunidad.
Es una comunidad, pero like. So where she from is Ha'a.
Mi abuelo dijo que vinieron 2 hombres vestidos de mujer, cargando un burro, y venían hablando, traían un intérprete Kumiai de San José de la Zorra, pero tampoco sabía mucho español.
Okay. Norma said that her grandfather told her that 2 men dressed as a woman, they came to her community, and that somebody from San Jose that was the interpreter, but he don't know that much Spanish neither, but they was with them.
Lo traían de traductor y él hizo, en Jaá los sacerdotes hicieron una iglesia. Tienen una piedra, hicieron su ulípulo, ¿cómo se llama? Ahí está todavía. Y dice que y el intérprete, como no sabía mucho hablar así, que igual que yo, y dice que ponía toda la tribu aquí y el señor aquí parado, el señor vestido de mujer, y les decía pues, y ellos preguntaban qué decía, y el señor, el intérprete dijo, quiero que ustedes se bañen porque ustedes son sucios, que ustedes son feos, y por eso mataron a los sacerdotes.
Okay, Norma saying the 2 men came, when they came to the community, they built, I guess it was the mission, and then they put like a rock so they can be like the table, you know, when they put the holy water and all that. And then so they gathered all the people from Nehi, and they were telling like, you know, you guys need to, you have to, when they do the baptism, I guess, you know, they said they would put water on you so we can wash because you're dirty and ugly. So all that kind of stuff. So people were getting angry about that when this guy was saying that.
Por eso estaban muy enojados pues la tribu, las familias estaban enojadas porque no le entendían al sacerdote que quería bautizarlos, pues. Entonces para echarle el agua decían que estaba sucio, pero no era para bautizar, no sabían qué es era.
So yeah, they didn't understand. So people, whoever was talking to them was saying like, "Oh, you guys are dirty," but I guess because they don't know how much to say it in the language, I guess, so they don't understand what it was the concept of the baptism. That's why they thought like, oh, they need to take a shower because they're dirty or something like that.
Y ya no salieron los vestidos de mujer de allí, los señores. Y existe todavía, pero nadie conoce la misión perdida que les llamamos nosotros. Esos que se vayan.
They say they call it the lost mission because nobody really knows where is that. I mean, they know, but the mission is not exist anymore, but they still have the rocks in there.
Ahorita en el tiempo, algunos que mexicanos, pues, han estado escarbando en esa parte de la iglesia, pero está hecho de pura piedra labrada para guardar los santos y aquí para una mesa de piedra. Escarban para buscar si había oro. Van y escarban, pues ahí lo dejamos que hagan.
So Norma said that some people come to the community and start digging up, trying to find, treasures or something like that. But I mean, I guess They're hiding into the rocks.
Y también mi comunidad, después de que se fueron, nomás entraron, se fueron, ellos vivieron bien a gusto, con sus usos y tradiciones. Por eso, gracias a ellos, yo soy todavía con la tradición Kumiai, por la lucha que han estado ahí escondidos. Es un cañón donde se escondieron.
So Norma said her people is kind of like in Kenya, kind of hiding over there, and that's why that she said, you know, thank you to that, she's still here because, you know, they don't get into the religion or nothing like that.
Yo aprendí español a los 13 años porque hicieron la escuela bilingüe indígena, INI, en aquel entonces. Y pues pero sí aprendí español. Estoy estudiando español para ser intérprete, para buscar, para que no se pierda la lengua Kumiai en los jóvenes, porque muchos jóvenes están perdiendo la lengua por los estudios que ya se van a estudiar otra parte.
Norma saying that she learned how to speak Spanish when she was 13 years old. 13 years old, and I mean she's still studying. And then she says it's very important because to keep learning, because a lot of the kids they go to school and they forgot about the language or the Kumiai culture.
Y el gobierno mexicano ha querido desaparecer nuestra cultura, nuestras lenguas. Y cuando hicieron la escuela bilingüe, donde me llevaron a mí a enseñarme español, trajeron muchos kumiais que estaban por fuera para que nos enseñaran kumiai, o porque no querían nada kumiai, que hablaran kumiai. Y eso fue genocidio, porque en ese momento ya casi toda juventud ya habla mucho más español. El Kumiai ya lo habían dejado, pero ahorita estamos volviendo a rescatar, pero que es un poco difícil.
¿En español? ¿Trajeron gente de Kumiai?
Kumiai, pero que no sabían. En vez de ir con nosotros a aprender Kumiai, lo llevaron para que nosotros dejáramos que hablaran, que nos enseñaran el Kumiai a nosotros, español, y no ellos aprender el Kumiai. Y eso fue hace 20 años.
¿Se entrenaron a los Kumiai para que enseñaran español? ¿O cómo?
No.
¿O cómo?
Fue impuesto, pues trajeron gente de afuera para que nosotros habláramos español.
Okay. Norma, she's saying the government that they're trying to do, you know, to do the genocide with the culture and the language, they bring people outside of the community so they can go and teach the people over there. But that's why a lot of the students, they start losing the language and the culture, because that's part of the plan of the government to the intent of genocide.
Mi comunidad sigue intacta, todo, pues para mí me gusta mucho estar todavía en mi comunidad, que todavía estamos allí.
She said my community is very intact still, like very like natural, open, and she said she really liked to be there.
Allí no tenemos iglesia.
So we don't have church in there.
Y sabemos lo que es respeto y amor hacia la naturaleza, y vivimos muy felices porque sabemos que hacemos el bien. Ninguno nos va a venir a decir que la iglesia para nosotros no sirve, pero para nuestra edad. Y jóvenes también ya están enseñándose que las iglesias fueron impuestas.
So Norma's saying that they don't have a church in the reservation, so they're very, they learn how to be connected with the nature, and that's what she said, we don't need a church. And then they're very respectful too of the nature, and then so a lot of the kids, they're learning too that they don't need to have a church in the community to have, you know, basically God in their lives, you know, my ha. And she's saying, that's it.
Mahan, mi po Maya.
Okay. Yo no voy a hablar de una misión en específico, ¿no? A lo largo, pues, de todo el territorio, tanto de Baja California Sur, Baja California, donde estamos nosotros ubicados, y aquí mismo en California, como bien lo mencionaba Stan, pues nuestros ancestros sufrieron muchos, pues, grandes atrocidades. Ya conocemos, ya está ya están registradas los mismos, ¿no? Nuestra población se redujo, nuestra gente soportó el maltrato, los recién llegados traían una cruz en la mano, pero detrás traían una espada con el cual pues quitaron muchas vidas de nuestros ancestros. Eso fue con la fuerza, con el hierro, con el filo de la espada, pero también trajeron algo que a lo mejor los mismos no sabían, que eran las enfermedades que desafortunadamente se ocasionaron grandes epidemias y redujeron pues significativamente el número de nuestra gente. Podemos seguir, igual habrá muchos espacios, o más bien hay pocos espacios donde no se ha hablado de esto, que además pues es una oportunidad única, porque bueno, siempre la razón está de qué lado, ¿no? De los descendientes de esas familias, de los religiosos, de los académicos, y podremos seguir explorando eso, pero la historia de los indios, la historia de los indígenas no se menciona. En ese sentido, yo me voy más a lo actual, ¿no? De cómo podemos seguir enumerando momentos trágicos, el cual nos haría falta mucho tiempo para poder seguir mencionando, ¿no? Quiero pasar a lo actual, cómo estamos, cómo seguimos. Ya desde estos sucesos pasaron hace mucho tiempo, pero aún todos esos efectos de lo que fue la conquista, de lo que fue el contacto con los misioneros, se sigue en la actualidad. ¿Y cómo se sigue? Bueno, hay muchos académicos, muchos fanáticos que siguen hablando de la grandeza de los misioneros. Siguen hablando que hubo un contacto muy bonito, mucha armonía, educaron a todos los grupos que se ubicaban en toda esta península. Y bueno, sus relatos han sido los mejores, ¿no? Pero la historia que no se ha contado es la de nosotros, ¿no? Es historia de los Kumiai, de los Pai Pai, de los Cucapá, de los Kikapú, de los Cochimí, todo hacia abajo no se ha contado. Lo han dejado a un lado y le han dicho, esta historia no se debe de contar porque no les conviene. No les conviene que se mencione que se mataron gente, que mataron niñas, que mataron personas ya en edad avanzada. Eso no se va a mencionar jamás. Y entonces nosotros como parte de toda esta lucha, tanto Norma, Marta, Stan y varios compañeros allá en Baja, igual Gregorio, nos hemos dado a la tarea de tratar de combatir todas esas acciones que se realizan. Por ejemplo, el Camino Real de las Californias. Unir un camino real que para nosotros significa el camino de las muertes de los grupos indígenas en Baja California, tanto Baja, Alta y Media, a sur. Eso es celebrarlo. Eso es parte del reconocer la grandeza de las misiones, que no hubo grandeza, hubo destrucción, hubo muerte en las comunidades. Eso es básicamente como nosotros pues queremos igual este tema, pues creo que es la primera ocasión donde nos permiten hablar sobre este tipo de las atrocidades que se cometieron en ella. Seguimos yendo a recorridos, seguimos yendo a las representaciones que realizan los mismos fanáticos, donde muestran la grandeza del contacto, se siguen haciendo. En Ensenada nosotros somos pocos y seguimos un pueblo, una comunidad muy pequeña, pero cada momento aprovechan para poder engrandecer esas acciones, ¿no? Nosotros nos hemos dado a la tarea pues de poder seguir atacando esas acciones, aun cuando nos hemos expuesto a comentarios racistas, comentarios discriminatorios, pero no importa, ¿no? Nosotros como nuevas generaciones, como personas que seguimos en este andar, debemos de utilizar todas las herramientas, tanto los foros académicos, las nuevas tecnologías para la difusión de la grandeza cultural de las culturas en estos territorios, ¿no? Otra de las cosas que se me olvidaba mencionar, dicen los fanáticos, los académicos, que los grupos humanos, de los grupos que estamos en estas partes, no conocíamos nuestro territorio. lo siguen mencionando, y yo lo escuché en un fanático en Ensenada, un escritor que escribe muchos libros, dice, es que los Kumiai no conocen su territorio, no conocen bien su casa, ¿cómo van a conocer el territorio donde están? Lo siguen mencionando. Esa es parte todavía de la discriminación que existe en torno a lo que es las misiones. La historia de nuestra gente, la historia de nuestros ancestros debe ser contada desde nosotros, con aquellas personas que nos pueden ir ayudando, que conozcan el entorno, como son los investigadores, como son las personas que se han preparado también. Son aliados, desde luego, pero la historia debe ser contada desde este lado, desde adentro hacia afuera, nunca de afuera hacia adentro, porque eso de adentro para afuera destruyó muchos conocimientos y muchas prácticas que se realizaban anteriormente, ¿no? Nosotros aquí seguiremos trabajando, igual seguiremos acudiendo a lugares, demostrando la riqueza y decir que los Kumiai, que los Pai Pai, que todos los grupos indígenas en este territorio seguimos y aquí estamos y aquí estaremos en resistencia todo el tiempo, ¿no? Es parte de lo que he querido compartirlo, pues gracias por su atención. Jai Han.
Okay. Yeah, I would try to do my best to say
I want to hear
what
this.
Gilberto was saying. Yeah, okay. So he was saying, I say, how can everyone? And he said, I would not talk today about all the missions in Baja California Sur or California. So he would just say, he said a lot of things happened with, when the Spaniards came and the missions came, they just, a lot of the intent of genocide happened, in the communities, and we all know already all the bad things happen, the killing of a lot of people, even kids, and girls and boys, very young kids and stuff like that. People have, they were slaves, and I mean, all that part, he said, I don't want to start talking about that right now, but like really what is going on in how like the Camino Real, people, like in Mexico, they were doing the Camino Real very strong, and they don't want to, they just want to sugarcoat the history, and then they don't want to say about, they don't want to talk about really what happened. They would just sugarcoat the whole thing, and then, and he say, and this is how it's very important, like the Native people talk about the Native issues, from inside to outside to the other world, like to have the Native, how do you say?
Voice?
Yes, yeah. Because a lot of times, a lot of like academics, they put whatever they want or whatever they think that's what's going on or what happened, and they kind of disturb the whole history. So that's why it's very important to be working together, and to
Have a voice.
to have a voice and talk to the people, about what happened. And a lot of things too that Gilberto was saying, like we don't have opportunities to talk about this kind of stuff. There's always like the academics, people talk about the people, oh, the natives this, the natives that, but they never give it the opportunity of people like to talk and to say the own story. And I think that's very important to do because there's our people, and that's what happened to us. So it's very important to us to say what happened. And then, oh my gosh, I can't remember anymore. So yeah, they said, Gilberto says a lot of people, like they really love the history of the conquistadores and stuff like that. And they do more emphasis in that instead of the native people. Like you will see like conferences, so they honor the Spaniards, so the soldier Spaniards, they need to be honored, and they do big ceremonies. And like you guys see too, they have a lot of big statues all over the place. But where is the native statues, There's nothing like that. So that's how Gilberto was saying, people like to sugarcoat the history and honor that part, So when is our time to change and tell our story? And then we say we're like 2021, and we're still fighting all these things, and of course in Baja and over here too in San Diego, and all this a lot of racism, racism, and then ¿cómo dijiste tú, Javi? Habías dicho algo que me gustó, me acuerdo. I forgot what it was. I don't remember what part he said, but I really like it. But yeah, it was so, it was about that, like people don't have the opportunity to talk about really the real history about what happened. And then, so anyway, so I think we are like, I say, yeah, everyone knows the history, right? What happened to our people, the intent of genocide and to our culture and language and stuff like that. But I think we're a very strong nation. We're a very strong nation. Thank you to that. We're still here. Our people, thank you to our ancestors, we're still here. And then, and one of the things too that I would like to share too, it was when we're like fighting against the border wall, we have people from Baja come and support, and we took over the border line over there, and we have not any line between us. We're one single nation as a family all together, and we have people from both sides of the border. We have the military, we have the border patrol, we have immigration. We have all these legal organizations with guns pointing at us. And you know what? I was very proud because I'm sorry, guys, but I was very proud of my people because we have a lot of elders. They came from Baja, and they told us, it's a cemetery. And there's people, they're no longer here with us. And it was people from Nehi. Someone elder, she just passed away last year. Norma was there. We all there. And then just to see, what the government from both sides of the border is doing to our nation. We have the government from Mexico. They did nothing. They destroyed a lot of nature in there, a lot of sacred sites in there. And where is the government from Mexico? They didn't move a finger to preserve those sites. And on this side we fight against Trump to stop that border wall. But we're still fighting, and I'm just saying we empower a lot of people on both sides of the border, and I think it's time to stop, all this sugarcoating, all these things, It's time for removing all the statues. It's not only in California or Baja California, it's all around the world, and Native communities, they sugarcoat the history, and it's time to stop this. I don't know how we would do it, but we're still fighting for that. So far, we have the group Kanapahan. We are part of that group, and we already changed a few names of different schools. We removed the Columbus status in Chula Vista legally, and then we're working. We're working very hard to change the history. And I'm just saying, I'm very thankful and very proud of my people because it's thousands and thousands of years, and we're still here. And the knowledge we have, this is for thousands of years. And not only the Kumiai people, but all the nations too. And having opportunities like this, I think will make us stronger and be all united, no matter what, no matter who you are. We all together as a human nation. It's time to honor our people, to our ancestors that, we're still here because that. And a lot of the things that, the people are using, That's our native knowledge. A lot of the medicines, a lot of the healing. There's thousands of knowledge that we need to honor that. And I think if we all work together, we can make the change. Because otherwise, they would destroy all the nature, all the world. I mean, you see it right now with the global warming and all this stuff. And having leadership like, the last administration was, they were not even living in global warming, and not respecting the laws already to protect native nations and all the laws. It was for us to protect our sacred sites. And we have a law, And in Mexico and Baja California, we don't have a law to protect those sacred sites. That's why it's very important to empower our people so they can fight and have a law to protect our sacred sites. Because all the money they make using our spaces, our sacred spaces, they go back to the government. In our communities, they're still the same. So I think it's time to make a change. And that's what I'm saying. I'm very proud of the people who are working very hard to be there, because it was not an easy thing. The border wall, it was just a little thing, a very little thing that we had to do over there. But we demonstrate the government. We don't even care. We don't care Mexico. We don't care United States. We came one solid nation, and nothing was in the middle of us. Nothing was. Just the sage, our prayers, and our songs. And a lot of native nations from different people who came and support us too. A lot of people. And I'm very thankful for those people. Even though they're not even native people, they come and support us because it's not their business, but they come and support. And I think we're very thankful for those people too. Thank you. Yeah, Johan.
Uh-huh. So I just wanted to say one more thing. Was, Kumiai and Baja and Kumiai on this side of the border, we're the same people. We're native people. And that border does not define us as a people. You have heard Kumiai members here who speak the language. One of the things that we have is our language is in danger of going extinct or dormant, according to the United Nations 9 factors of language vitality and endangerment. And one of the things that we're doing together, we're working together to develop a program bringing both speakers from Baja and the United States. The beginning of January, we're going to be doing a 1-month intensive immersion program, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week for 1 month. The goal of this program is for the participants to be able to speak our language comfortably in conversation for at least 1 hour. If they can speak for 1 hour, they can speak 5 hours. They can speak 10 hours. This is something that we are doing when our people come together. Our people spirit, our people are strong. We are reversing language shift. We have people like Paul Cuero here, who's a song leader, taught many people how to sing Tokok. We have other people here, Jamie, who's been picking up that rattle. Every time he's called, he goes out there to sing. Mike Conley, who has developed our history course so that our history, the true history, is told. Not what we hear from, academia, but our own people, our own scholars do this. Ladies and gentlemen, to me, this is an exciting time because we're empowering our nation. We are not allowing the border to control us.
I want to say something.
Okay.
Oh, you will?
Sure, yeah. Okay. What I was going to say was, as we come together, and Gilberto's grandmother was the one that came up with the analogy of our culture being a askai, a clay pot that was shattered, and that each community had a piece of that clay pot. But when we come together and we grind those shards back into powder, that's our past. When we bring in new clay and grind that up, that's a present. We put it together and we make a stronger askai pot. That is our future. We have that as a people. And I said before, when we speak our language, that is resistance. When we sing our songs, that is resistance. When we know our culture, that is resistance. When we can go back and forth across another person's border, not our border, and interact with each other as equals, that is resistance. And, you know, we can take a look at all the fighting. Our people fought. Our people burned down missions. Our people resisted. They resisted back then, we resist today, and we will continue to resist because this is for our children, our grandchildren, for our future. Makan, Mike, and up, Maba.
I would just want to share that we're working together too to have our Kumiai flag to represent all the Kumiai reservations on both sides of the border. And then, so, you know, that's another big thing too, you know, to have only one solid nation all together, even don't care about the border wall, you know. So now we can talk to the government nation to nation. And then, so yeah, I mean, we still have a lot of work to do, but I mean, we're still fighting for our rights. Yeah, Han. Thank you. Any questions, comments?
I was going to ask Mike.
Oh, no, I just hope that, well, thank you for your spirit and thank you for all the work you're doing. I just hope that one day that we can look at that wall not being there, that we can get into a pass and repass for our family. I know before my mom left, she asked if I could get for family, our family from the Huerta to come out, from the Baja community, so she could see him one last time because she couldn't travel down there. So I look forward to working on with the governments and eliminating that wall, because that wall is like an open wound between our homeland, right?
Yeah.
Our homeland extends 100 miles south, 100 miles north from ocean to desert, but yet that wall is like a wound because it separates our families.
Yeah.
It prevents our families from seeing each other. And I hope that one day that our family from Baja can come here and visit their family on this side without being stopped at that wall, because it is unceded territory. It is our homeland.
Yeah.
And it actually breaks my heart knowing that I can go down there and come home, but why can't they come home up here?
Yeah.
And so I will look forward to one day having that rectified and corrected with our government, because we are a nation, we are a powerful people, and we do have a voice, and together, I feel that this will come to fruition for our people, to connect our families again, once together. That 16 bands, that flag represent one homeland for all of us.
Yes.
Makan. Makan. Anyone else? Yes.
She was the Shakapi.
It's okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, hang on for one moment. I'm sorry.
Just thank you all. Well, obviously you bring up a lot of things. I really appreciate the unifying flag. I think that's a symbol, like a physical symbol, right, of
Yeah.
the way we unify as a people. I pray that same thing for our Pam coalition people, that we stop thinking of ourselves as individual nations, because
Yes.
we are not individual nations. And we're stronger, obviously, if we work together. I work in education, right, trying to bring equity and equality to our Native students, and we talk to our students about resistance as well. And I'm just wondering, you know, how you frame that. So when the school says to me, "What is it you're resisting?" right? And I'm like, our inevitable extinction, right? That's what was supposed to happen.
Yes.
So I feel like that's what we're resisting.
Simulation, yeah.
Yes, and so I'm just wondering if you have like advice for when, because our district wants to keep our programs out of their school because of this kind of language that we use with our young people, feeling that we're radicalizing them when we're just trying to empower them and keep them alive, right? So like, what would be your thoughts to that?
Okay.
No,
Well, I would just want to make this comment. I think, like you say, every time we speak our language, sing or dance our songs, that's a way of, getting away from assimilation too, and also working to have the respect to the culture and to the language to our nations. Like for example, Kumiai Community College, all the knowledge is about our culture and our language, and now different universities need to respect that because this is knowledge for thousands and thousands of years. They need to be respected. And then because if we just go to the Western education and we don't do our education, we're lost. We'll be already, do the assimilation, and I think education is not only the Western education, but our education as a Native people, our way of life as a Kumiai people. We have a lot of values and a lot of, a lot of things that the way of life of Kumiai people live, you cannot find it in any other university, but you can find it with your elders, with your people. And then, so like I said, you can go to the more expensive university, you will not get that knowledge, that you will get it from your people, and that's the way of our life, right?
Yeah, that's smart.
I don't know.
Thank you. Wow.
Keegan?
Yeah, I was wondering if you could elaborate a little bit. You mentioned coming together as one nation, many bands, many groups coming together as one nation. Can you explain some of the protocols around that? Like, how do you guys make decisions together as a nation?
Yeah, I can do.
Oh.
One of the things I see, like how people are like organizing as a Kumiai reservations. There are people getting in committees, right? We have like KDLC, KHPC, so there are different committees for different things like education, culture, protection of the land, and the sacred sites and stuff like that. And it's all the reservation coming together as a one group and take decisions for the whole nation, right, you guys? You guys don't, so that's how we come together. And for us, like we have the group Tipe Hua, and we're trying to do the same thing. We come together, like people from both sides of the border, and also people who want to support us too. And then so we can do movements on both sides of the borders too, especially right now, helping the communities in Baja. Because now with the COVID, our reservations over there are having a hard time. So we're trying to help with health, education, and culture. And then every year we go to take donations over there, like cleaning supplies and gifts and stuff like that in December for the families over there. And working together too for the education so the youth can have scholarships and stuff like that. And then right now, we just come back from Mexico City, me and Norma and Gregorio, and we get a certificate for via language interpreters and do evaluations on the Kumiai language. And then working with the general director of the Language Institute, we're trying to do some MOUs right now with them. So the people in the Baja, they have language programs in the communities. So that's some of the stuff we're working right now to help us to keep going with our culture and language and stuff like that. But that's what I'm saying. The more support we have and more united we'll be, that will be better for our people. And maybe not for us, but for the youth, for the kids that are coming. That's, we need to make sure they have resources and things so they can keep going.
We're also working, Kumiai Community College is working with our counterparts in Baja to start up a sister school, a sister tertiary institution. And that's taking time, but we want to develop educational opportunities for our counterparts in Baja to, to move on, to make it to preparatoria, go into the university and be success stories so that they can come and help out their communities. So again, the border is basically a speed bump for us. We just need to keep going through it. And as we continue going, we develop capacity, we make capacity, we're strong.
Kind of follow up. Is this, Kumiai Nation coming together? Is this something that you see, expanding across California?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Oh.
Lo voy a preguntar en español.
Ajá.
Pues hoy en día con los avances en nuestra sociedad es bien fácil para los jóvenes verse en asimilación. ¿Qué hacen ustedes específicamente para promover ese orgullo cultural en sus jóvenes?
Ok, yo puedo contestar. Oh, come.
Yo he aprovechado mucho en cuestión de asimilación en cuanto a la edad, el uso de la tecnología, Facebook, Instagram. Me he dado cuenta que desde mi espacio, la reacción, todo el movimiento es a nivel cultural. Si yo hago una actividad fuera de la cultura, no se mueve en redes sociales, es muy poco. Entonces lo que nosotros decimos, si tú quieres, pues bueno, son jóvenes, son muchachos, trabajen con cultura y difundan su cultura, eso los va a salir a que se den a conocer. Es lo que a mí me ha funcionado y a mis compañeros les ha funcionado. O sea, utilizar las nuevas tecnologías como tal para poderle, ahora sí que inculcarle, mira, trabaja con cultura. Eso en cuanto a tecnología, ¿no? Pero ya en la profundidad, pues es decir, mira, tenemos un territorio muy amplio. Vámonos, agarramos el vehículo y vámonos al monte, a caminar, a platicar, a imaginar y conéctate de nueva cuenta con lo que es tuyo, con lo que es de nosotros, ¿no? Vamos a veces muchos lugares, en lugares privados, donde nos dicen, bueno, es que no pueden entrar porque no es su territorio, no está a posición. No, les decimos, este es territorio Kumiai, este es territorio de los pueblos indígenas, al menos en Baja California. Y lo que hacemos es que se vengan, poquito, 1, 2, no ocupamos mucho porque genera un gasto. Con 1 o 2 personas o jóvenes o niños que se involucre, con eso damos ahora sí que se sienta la actividad, pues, aprovechar al máximo, es decir, mira, regresen, esto es lo que hay, lo que es nuestra historia. Aquí pasaron gente, aquí está una piedrita, está un metate, eso es de nuestra gente, esa es historia, esa es tu historia, ¿no? Recalcarle que es parte de esta tierra, que es parte de este territorio.
Tengo una pregunta sobre la misión que vamos a visitar mañana. ¿Esa misión de San Miguel era la misión que tuvo un impacto en la comunidad de ustedes también? ¿O era una misión, tenía una misión más cerca de Tecate que era?
Esa está cerca de mi comunidad. Está a 27 kilómetros de la costa. Entonces, pues ahí tenían muchos Kumiai de diferentes comunidades. Entonces fue que por eso quisieron destruir la misión y para que saliera toda la gente libre de ahí. Ajá. Y pues nomás hay unos pedacitos de pared ya. Ajá.
Ya.
En Baja California era la misma historia que como en Alta California, que mucha gente de diferentes pueblos indígenas habían transportado o capturado por diferentes
Sí, justo.
Era igual.
Sí. Marta, también decir el impacto de las misiones, ¿no? Recordemos que tanto las comunidades y reservas son relativamente nuevas. Cuando llegaron las misiones, nuestra gente se empezó a esconder, o sea, el impacto fue desde ahí, porque en realidad anteriormente no existía ni un Nejí, ni un San Antonio Necua, ni la Zorra, ni la Huerta, no, eran libres, acuérdense los clanes, los recorridos, el impacto fue el ya no poder generar esos recorridos, desde ahí viene pues el impacto que generó.
So Gilberto's talking about how, like, before we don't have reservations, which is, people living in different areas, and then so when the Spaniards came, that's when people started moving into the mountains, because they were moving out away from the mission, and that's why. But our people, is from the ocean, in that area. But if you guys notice, mostly it's inland right now, and that's the reason why with some of the missions, that was one of the reasons.
But one of the things I just wanted to say too is that Martha's family were one of the last families that would go in the springtime out by La Misión to go and gather salt and harvest mussels and do a lot of the traditional things that our people have done out by the ocean. So her family were keepers of that knowledge too. I just want to share that. Martha used to do that when she was young.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, you can go travel free to not that free, but yeah, at least it was not buildings like now. Just go to the ocean and go fishing and get mussels and stuff like that. Spend like 1 or 2 days over there and go back to the reservation. Now, and it's everything private properties. Now they have a big walls and a big houses over there. So I mean, we cannot do it anymore. Because everything is private property now. So,
Okay.
yeah.
I think that, what a lot of people don't understand is that, like Stan was saying that, on our side, we're losing a lot of our language. When I was a young boy, my great-grandmother knew a lot of people on the other side because they would interact all the time. And once she passed away, we kind of lost those ties. So when I was a boy, there used to be 3 men that used to come up every summer or all through the year. And they would come up and they would stay with my grandmother and they would tell them what was happening on the other side. And then he'd stay with us, with my grandmother, and then he'd go back and tell them what was happening on this side. And we don't have those people that are doing that anymore. And now, like I said, our old people died off. It's the younger generation where we have this gap now, where, and now we have a language barrier because we're not speaking our language and we don't speak Spanish and they don't speak English. And so that's where we're trying to overcome these things again and start to unite, because at one time in the 50s is when they put that border up and they really started to make it where you couldn't cross. It used to be people would walk back and forth all the time, but once they finally put that border up, it really put up and stopped our people from going back and forth, because where I live, we're close to the border. And so there was a lot of our people that were going back and forth, and like I said, so they knew a lot of people over there at one time. And now we're at that point where we're talking to people and we're saying, oh yeah, my grandmother talked about these people. Like I had some guys come up and they were showing me how some of the older people got baptized over here. And my grandparents were like the godparents. And I'm like, of course they died before I was born, but I seen their signatures there and I'm like, hey, these are my grandparents. They were the godparents of these people. So there was at one time a lot of interaction, but like I said, once that border got up there in the 50s, that's when the interactions kind of stopped. And that, like I said, up until the late 70s, when those men were still walking up here and telling and talking about what was happening on the other side, who passed, what was going on, and like I said, on this side, then he would go back and tell them who passed on this side. So there used to be these 3 men that used to walk all the time. And when I was a young boy, they'd come walking out of the bushes. And I'd be like, oh, they're here. They'd be sitting there and then they'd be sitting there with my grandmother telling them all what was happening on that other side. So we don't have that, like I said, now, and we need to get that connection again, because now we don't have that connection. It's like we're like, oh, we don't really know them, but reality is we're all related. There's a lot of marriage between all those different villages, and so we just gotta get back to those roots again. And there's so much that, like what we say over there, they have a lot that we don't have over here, and we have some stuff over here that they don't have over there. And now it's time to start exchanging those things again. And so we become like Stan said, we become this cool pot again. Because everybody has pieces of it. We just got to pull it together. And we're slowly doing that, you know, it's, my tribe was one of the first ones that went down there, was helping them with water, and you know, so we are trying to, you know, bring these things together again. Hopefully, you know, and it's just got bigger, and it's slow, but it's been snowballing. It's been rolling, and it's getting bigger and bigger, and hopefully that, again, we'll have that, you know, help them with their issues and help us with our issues again. Because there's, one of our old people told me, you know, they were kind of going through right now what we went through in the 50s. And so we kind of know how to, because we survived that, so now we need to go down there and help them with those kind of issues, because like Martha's saying, there's still a lot of rights they don't have. Where that's the same thing we had on this side, but we fought and we changed some of those things, and that's what we need to be doing on that side with our people, is helping them change those things as well, making sure that they're keeping their land and you know, because they're constantly fighting over that too, for their to hold on to it. You know, so again, it's just that bringing these our people together to say, hey, on this side we did that fight already. Let us help you with that fight.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you. And I just want to say thank you, Paul. Oh, sorry. Shuya. Because, when we're like at the border wall, Campo, you know, they was supporting us a lot, and they sent them a big machine to clean up the area, because the border patrol, they were closing the roads all the time for us to go to the border wall. And then they sent a big machine so they cleared up the space, because the reservation go very close to the border. And then there were some people, they want to jump in the big machine and like to stop it and be like, no, you guys, I'm Kumiai, I'm with you guys. I would say thank you. I'm sorry,
Well, Martha, first I just want to say thank you for your tears. You know,
Thank you.
to be at a conference where you prepare and write and bring that humanity.
Yeah.
It's a lot of weight, you know, to be out there all the time. So, just wanted to say thank you. Para ustedes también quería preguntarles, por ejemplo, yo soy Kashkan y nos organizamos en los 1930, nos volvimos a organizar en 1980, la generación de mi papá. Y por ejemplo, nosotros en la área de Zacatecas y de Durango tenemos mucho problema con el INAH. Y muchos de los problemas tienen que ver que no son los mismos cascanes que 1500 y corren. Entonces, está siempre no sé, este tema de que no son los mismos originales de antes. No sé si ustedes han tenido este problema en los pueblos Kumiai. Con nosotros, por ejemplo, somos 14 rancherías en la nación de nosotros. Y esto para nosotros es muy difícil porque Lina está a cargo de muchos lugares sagrados que pues, ya lo tienen como propiedad federal. Y por ejemplo, estoy escribiendo mi historia, pero tengo que brincar fences y eso ilegalmente para tratar de adquirir estos lugares sagrados. No sé si tienen este mismo.
Tenemos un poquito. Tenemos igual el mismo problema, pero acá, por ejemplo, el principal difusor del proyecto del Camino Real de Misional es el Instituto Nacional de Antropología e Historia. Es el principal actor que ha difundido y que ha pretendido generar este proyecto desde ya hace algunos años, no es nuevo. O sea, los hay. Sí se encuentran las áreas protegidas, que son vallecitos y otras pinturas rupestres. Sí se encuentra con ese problema, pues, con este instituto y con otros, ¿no? Yo mismo ahora estoy trabajando como funcionario en gobierno y es muy difícil porque todas las políticas públicas de México van dirigidas a los grupos mayoritarios, es decir, al sur de nuestro país. Oaxaca, Chiapas, Veracruz, Yucatán, o sea, esos son los pueblos indígenas mayoritarios que tienen 20,000 hacia arriba, O sea, cuentan votos, pues. Nosotros, desafortunadamente, para ello no contamos votos. 250 en Ejí, 250 en La Huerta, 300 más o menos. O sea, relativamente las políticas públicas están creadas para grupos enormes, grupos grandes. Y sí lo seguimos en la misma problemática.
I have a question from Emily. What's your name?
Yeah.
Emily Chan?
Emily Chan, yes. So she asked, how can our next generations move away from the Degeno way of thinking? Is it possible for elders to do that too?
Who's she asking?
Paul?
The panel.
Porque aquí mucha gente, es que diegueños es como el nombre de esclavo que les dieron a la gente aquí, pues los diegueños. Dice, pero ¿cómo las jóvenes pueden moverse de decir eso, diegueños? Que no quiere decir no. ¿Cómo puede ser?
Kumiai. Es como el grupo lingüístico, ¿no?
No, es que diegueño es el nombre del esclavo. Pues.
Ajá. Diegueños.
Pues yo creo que somos una cultura. Oh, I'm sorry.
I was going to say,
I would say I think we're like an evolving culture, you know, and then so everything we're like, you know, coming different things. But I think we need to respect the elders. You know, that's because when that happened, you know, they put a lot of fear in our people. Or you go to the church or you go to hell, right? So a lot of people are scared to that. And what can we do? I mean, just respect their feeling and their fears right now, you know. But now, you know, new generations, you know, we know what happened. You know, we see how our people suffer, and we want to make a difference in the new generation. So I think we should be like very strong and be like, hey, no, we're Kumiai or we're Ipai Tipai, you know. But we need to respect our elders and that part too.
and it comes down to a personal choice that everybody makes.
Yeah.
You know, and my elders, and I've heard them talk like that. I've heard them say, you're Diguino. And out of respect for them, because they're my elders, I'm not going to correct them. That's what they learned. My father used to call himself that. My aunts and uncles call themselves that. That is their way. But as we continue to indigenize ourselves, decolonize ourselves, you're seeing that change. And you've heard it, I've heard it, and again, it takes time.
Yeah, for myself, for example, I like to call myself a nation instead of a tribe. It's more powerful. Or just saying Kumiai more often than Degeno, correct? I know we used to be called the Sequan Band of Mission Indians, and they were able to change that to the Kumiai Nation, and it just felt more like us, our identity. And the more we incorporate that, the more we teach our Kumiai Community College and offer those classes, not just for our own people, but outside the community too, so it makes us that much stronger. So I think, like you said, it's like citing your information. Like Stan, I was telling someone earlier that we should cite our own sources, such as Dr. Paul Cuero, Dr. Stan Rodriguez, Mike Conley, who are all writing books. It's important for our people to really start citing our resources instead of outside. A lot of our people don't even look at us being the right ones, right? Or no, they know more, for example. So I think that all ties together. It's Degeno, Kumiai, our information that's out there, nation, tribal. I think all these things are that once we start using them, it becomes normal, it becomes part of our vocabulary.
Yeah, I think.
Making change.
Yeah, I think learning the vocabulary is very important right now too. You know, because a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm very proud I'm Native American," but what is really American? You know, so I think it's very important to read those lines because you know it's a message behind that. So that's what I would like to say. I'm Kumiai. You know, and that's it. I'm Kumiai. Or whatever nation.
Question to ask, and I don't know if it's too far outside with the panel discussion, but it is about our spirit, right? What does Native American Heritage Month mean to you? What does it mean? Because I'm going to be doing a video and I didn't know how to answer that. I know I'd rather reframe it and say, I'd rather answer that as what does it mean to be Kumiai, right? But what does that mean to this panel, to be Native American? What does Native American Month mean to you?
That's what I'm saying. That's a very, very big vocabulary that I don't like to use because, you know, they have the meaning behind of that. What is Americano? Well, that come from Spain, right? So in a way, you're kind of like honoring that, you know. So that's what I'm like. No, I'm Kumiai. That's what our people told me. You know, that's our people. That's what we are. That's what like. There's a lot of words that the Spaniards put over here that people are using right now. We're not knowing what is the meaning behind. You know what I mean? So it's just.
I think that you have to look at it in a sense that
¿Verdad?
it's,
Dice que quiere que decir
What?
nativo americano.
this is something that's coming to the mainstream, but why? It's because we're pushing it forward. You know, and it's unfortunate that we don't have a lot of our people push it, but there's very few people out there that are putting these things in the forefront and reminding people. And that's why you see now they're saying, okay, we'll do Native American Month. And it's because what we're doing as people, we're pushing these things forward, we're putting it into their face and saying, no more. This is who we are. So it's actually because of the work that people before us and that we're trying to do ourselves are really putting it out there, and we're changing that. And so it's really, you know, something that we push forward. Just like, you know, we're seeing a lot of these things, laws change when it comes to remains. It's because what we're pushing forward. And now we're finally, we have a voice and we have a little bit of money that's pushing it forward. We're saying these things are important to us, and you must start recognizing this. And that's what, and the truth of the matter, when people really start to see, they start to see, yeah, that's right. What had happened here is wrong. But it's again explaining it. You can't go out there with a big stick and beat people. You need to take it and say, look what's happening here. Do you think this is right? And most people, when they see it, they'll say, no, it's not right. What you're doing is right. Keep moving forward. And that's what happens. And that's why, you know, it's so important that our college take off. You know, so it's teaching our own people, because like you're saying, we've been told this is who you are. I remember when I was a boy, when Kumiai was first coming back to our reservation, and my parents were like, no, we're not Kumiai. And my great-grandmother sat down and said, that's what we used to call it a long time ago. It's just because it's something that they didn't hear. They right away said, no, that's not it. But when somebody sat there and explained it to them, yes, it's even in our language. So, I mean, so again, it kind of opened their eyes to it too, and then they finally started to get on board with it. But it was something new to them too. They were like, you know, I'm not Kumi, I'm Degano. But again, it was somebody sat down and said, no, this is an older word than that. This is what we did call ourselves. And so, again, it's our people explaining it, putting it forward to them. And that's what we have to keep doing. And we had some elders that died, died as Degano. But it's the younger people that are pushing it now.
Yeah.
So like now, a lot of, at my reservation, they'll all tell you Kumiai. Nobody talks about Degano no more. But it took a shift. It took many years for that to happen. And now it's happening. Now everybody out of my reservation will tell you, we're Kumiai. We're Degano. There's very few people that are still left that will say, I'm Degano. But most will say, I'm Kumiai, because it's the push that we push forward. And that's what we just got to keep doing. So when we look at these things, it's because what we push forward. It's not because they're giving it to us, or it's because what we're saying, no, we're pushing it forward. And we need people like that to keep doing this. So like this panel here, what they're doing is giving us history, giving us that foundation to say, oh, yes, I see now, I understand. I'm hearing some of these stories. So that, again, you know, like I said, even with this critical mission thing, you know, even though we're putting it together, we still need that audience, and we still need to explain it to the outside community so they get a wherewithal to say, yes, that's right.
Yeah, it's really a time to find our voice, right? You know, when I came in this morning, I thought I was just gonna sing the songs and probably leave, but seeing who was here, I said, this is very important, but I saw this as being one of many things. Is what Native American Heritage Month means, right? Find your voice, talk about these issues that are within our nation that you talked about in Baja still. Like Paul, you were saying, we've learned over here, now it's time to take what we learned here and take it to Baja rectify or bring more prosperity down there like we did for our people on this side, right? Just bring that voice, finding your voice, and that's what I found today, so I want to thank you, the panel, and thank the conference itself. And Paul, thank you.
And you know, what we take down to Baja, we're also getting from Baja.
Yes.
I mean, the basket makers, the pottery makers, all that knowledge I got from down there. I learned from the people down there. They sat down, they taught me. And you know, it's like that saying, knowledge without sharing is not really knowledge.
Right.
And when we share together, we grow strong together. And like when we were talking about Kumiai, up at San Isabel, I still have some of my elders, oh, here comes that Kumiai again. And I'm like, putting on my asbestos underwear, here we go again. But, you know, I'm still stand fast, you know, this is what I am. You know, it's Payo, it's just the way it is.
And we're family.
We are family.
We're family. My uncle's married in La Huerta, and I know when I took this to my people, we were raising some donations last year to take down there. I was able to take that to my family, to my community, but because they haven't been part of it, they don't realize that they have actually have a little family down there. So I took it to our general counsel one time. I was saying, this is not just my family, it's your family too. These are your relatives. So we really look forward to having the Wind Bazaar the next month up here at Sinuan, so we can continue to build those bridges.
And also, on the 21st of December, the winter solstice in La Rumarosa in Baja.
Is that good to go this year, Stan?
Mike, we're gonna go.
I need to check if it's open yet.
La Rumarosa.
No COVID restrictions?
We'll just,
Okay.
we'll bundle.
Okay.
Okay, it snows up there sometimes. Just one. Okay. Ya pomoć my child. My pecha, the nason. A what?
What's your child?
Ahan.
What?
Ahan. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, hon.
As we say, as we used to say at the San Isabel Reservation, former home of the 495 prime rib, we're done.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Yeah. So we're beginning this session, and just to go over what's happening. So we're starting the afternoons, the last session with the Kumiai bird songs. Harry Paul Cuero, Campo Band of Kumiai, and I will introduce him in a second. And then we're going to have a closing roundtable discussion, the future of critical mission studies. This may be a lightning round because people, you know, are going to get ready to have the banquet. And we're going to, where are we showing this film? Here, okay, so right. And then at 5:30, we're going to be showing the Walk for the Ancestors film here as well. So everything is happening here until the banquet. The banquet starts at 6:30. There'll be a little time to stretch your legs and whatever, clear your mind. And then the banquet is in the other room, although this will be opened up, so it'll be a larger space. So I'm Ross Frank. I'm from the Department of Ethnic Studies at University of California, San Diego. I'm one of the many people who have been working on the Critical Mission Studies project over the last 3 years. And most of you are the other people who have been working on the Critical Mission Studies project for the last 3 years. So I want to thank everyone who's presented today. First, I'd like to introduce a friend, an amazing person, Paul Harry Cuero, otherwise known as Junior. I've known Junior for a couple decades at least, and I first met him as what I would describe as an organic intellectual, someone who has absorbed all sorts of things from early ethnographic accounts of this region, all sorts of formal texts that my students don't even know about, as well as an incredible amount of organic, grounded knowledge that comes from being in the community, being a leader, and being a leader in a number of different ways on different registers. I also remember Paul as performing with the San Diego Symphony in a symphony that was written in part, the whole section, for his singing, as well as conversations, both political and otherwise, over the course of years in thinking about the region, and also the development of indigenous sovereignty in many respects, often mixing cultural, spiritual, social, and then also concerns about how to renew the generations for a long, sustained way of living here. So I'd like to just ask everyone to give it up for Paul Cuero and welcome him and his birthday to the Critical Mission Studies Conference. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Ross. I'd like to introduce my wife. This is Jodine Cuero, and she's going to help me today with the part of my presentation here on the what did you call it?
Oh, it's just looking at the psychological framework in terms of how the traditional knowledge, his traditional knowledge that he is passing down, and how he incorporates it as a coping mechanism that has been helpful in maintaining balance and wellness. So it's just coming from one of the theoretical cognitive behavioral perspectives. That's just one of, I would call it an alternative idea in incorporating some sort of balance within this Western world that we live in.
So in saying that, you know, the part of my thing for the Critical Mission was to talk about our songs and talk about what the church had kept us from. Today we have one of our songs, we call it Takuk in our language, and most people know that as bird songs. And there's teachings in those songs and life and stuff like that. But we also had a lot of other songs that were sung as well that also had a lot of teachings in it. And a lot of those songs disappeared over time. And Bird was one of the songs that we were able to hold on to. For us, we say that the song comes from the very beginning of the Creator who gave it to us. And how what the church did to keep us from that knowledge, you know. So you know, I'm just old enough to see that when I was a young boy, at our funerals and things like that, we were singing church hymns. We weren't singing our own songs, and you know, we had prayer leaders that were trained by, you know, at them going to church, and those are the ones that would come along and sing, and we would still do our wakes, and they would do the rosary, and then they would do these church songs or these hymns, and they were all in Spanish, which we didn't know what they were even saying. But they're very, very beautiful in the melodies, and I would sit there and listen to it, and you know, and there was an article that came out in 1985 by one of the leaders' wife. She would also go along with him and sing all different places. They were prayer leaders, and I remember seeing them as a boy, and I just remember hearing them singing. And she talked a lot in this article about her husband and what he was doing. He was the first one, you know, he was trilingual. So he spoke Indian, he spoke Spanish, and he spoke English. And she told the story of how, you know, he would go along and do these prayers and stuff. And a lot of the people didn't know what what was going on, because they didn't speak Spanish. They were all in Spanish. And so he started to explain a lot of it in Indian. And you know, like I said, since Catholicism came here and took over, we were kind of following. They really kind of took charge of a lot of our things. And like I said, one of the big things was music. And like I said, you know, like I don't know the word the songs, what they meant, but they had very beautiful melodies. And like I'll sing a couple of them for you. There was one that was like Buenos dias, paloma blanca, voz de luz saluda. Saludame tu sayen, sayen, the rain the cielos, yeah. So you hear that melody, it was sad, and people would cry. And you know, like another one would be Adios, reina du cielo, Madre del Salvador. Adios, oh Madre mía. Adios, adios, adios. So you would hear these melodies all through the night, and then when we'd come to the end, and people, you know, he'd said, you know, they sang these songs to help people cry, to get it out. And because within our own music, we had that too, but it wasn't being sung no more. And the tribes in the desert were still doing it. And we would ask, every once in a while, we'd ask them to come up, and they would come and sing. And, you know, like some of the music that we have was shared among a lot of the desert tribes. And, you know, like I said, we had a singer up here. His name was George Hyde at the time. There was others. But what had happened, you know, during these times also, you know, that, you know, like I said, the church came in and they you know, kept us from singing these songs. A lot of the old people knew them, but, you know, they weren't doing it. And as a boy, like I said, I just started to see where our music started to come back. And I thought, you know, like I said, I'd listen to these church hymns, and I was like, man, they're really pretty too. But I didn't know what they were singing about. But the melodies were really pretty. And when you don't know something, you can't really learn from it, right? You're just hearing the music, but you don't know what it's really saying or what it's about. And that's kind of like today, even with our bird songs. A lot of our young people don't know what they're about either. So so now we're kind of like transitioning with that as well, as trying to teach them to what the meaning is. And a lot of times what I tell them, like, you know, when we start out, our songs are really slow, and it's talking about the sun going down, and they're real slow. And I always tell them it's like a train. You know, it's starting off, and also, it's also meant for us to also be able to sing all night. So it starts out really slow and low, and as you start building and you start coming, like I say, I always tell them it's kind of like you're starting to go up the hill, and the songs are, you know, now are getting a little bit, you know, because, you know, when you go uphill, it takes more energy. So now you're putting more energy into it because you're going up that hill. And then you come up to midnight. Now you're at that plateau. And that's where, our song, at midnight there are certain songs that would need to be sung. But at the same time, because of the Catholicism, like I said, we kind of emerged. Okay, we got to take a break, let the prayer leaders come in and do their songs, and then we would start up again after them. And then when it came to midnight, there was kind of a little clash, because at midnight we had songs that needed to be sang, and they felt that they had to sing some songs. Because one of them's talking about the Good Friday, and and it's talking about when Jesus has he's dying. But also for us, when it comes to midnight, we're going to go around and we're saying we're protecting the spirit of that person. So there would be this little clash, well, we got to sing our songs at midnight. And we're like, well, we got to sing our songs at midnight too. And, so, they kind of would work it out. Okay, well, go ahead, you guys do it. Or no, you go ahead and you do it this time. And to now, where we don't have none of that. We're not having none of those church hymns because now, people are believing differently. And so now we're just doing our own songs, but we're still having where the people are not understanding them and not getting the full everything out of it. And, even for myself, I didn't know how to explain it. And I was talking, one day my little grandson came to me, he's 5 years old, and he asked me, Bubba's, that's what he calls me, do you know how to meditate? And I'm thinking, no. So he gets down on his, he sits down and he puts his hands up like this and he's going, I'm like, okay, I've seen that before, And I was at the education center and there was this a lady that was going to teach yoga. And I was asking her, and part of yoga, there's also meditation that goes along with it. So I was asking her because I was saying, my grandson's asking me, and I go, I don't know what that is. Can you explain it to me? And she sat down and she said, okay, let me ask you this. When you're singing, what are you thinking about? And I said, I'm just concentrating on that song that, I have my eyes closed and I'm in that zone. She goes, you're meditating. And I said, wow, I never knew that. And I used to tell a lot of my singers, I said, there's points where when I would sing and I said everything would just slow down and be so clear that everything was just so clear to you. Well, that was meditating. So, the church not only took away our songs, but they took a lot of other things that went along with it, that gave us these understandings that where I could be able to tell my singers, this is what I'm talking about. I only found this out, like I said, maybe 8 months ago. Now I know where I can explain it a lot better. But you could see that knowledge that I'm missing because some things were taken away from us. And when you look at that whole part, when these things are being taken away from us, like I said, like our songs, this song here, I'm going to sing it for you. And to me, it's a very important song because there's teachings in it. Ishakola chameo, Ishakola chameo, wayame, 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 Ishakola chameo, Ishakola chameo, wayame, 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 Ishakola chameo. Ishakola chameo, wayame, 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 Ishakola chameo, Ishakola chameo, wayame, 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 Ishakola chameo, Ishakola chameo. Wayame, 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 Ishakola chameo, Ishakola chameo, wayame, wayame, Ishakwala Chameo, Ishakwala Chameo, Wayame, Yame, Wayame, Yame, Wayame, Yame, Wayame, Ishakwala Chameo. Now, that song is talking about the morning is here. And a shakulau is a mockingbird. And the mockingbird is weeping, is what it's saying. And he's weeping because the day is gone. It's now gone. On the other hand, he's happy because a new day is starting. And so what they're telling us, that's what our tears are for, because that's what he's saying, that mockingbird's weeping. He's telling us my tears are for when I'm happy and when I'm sad. That's why we have these tears. It's a way of releasing, not holding these things into, but letting it go. So you could imagine that here's one song that's just really teaching you how you need to let some of these things out, because if you don't, you're going to get sick. That's what the old people would say before dawn. And they're saying, start the fire. Start the fire. And now they look, when they sing that song, they're talking about, we're getting ready to start the pyro, getting ready to cremate, start the fire. But at one time it was talking about, hey, it's cold, start the fire, let's warm up. And the way those songs went, as they started the fire, it was heating the sky. And the heat was eating the stars, meaning that now that sun's coming too, and it's eating the stars, they're disappearing. And so that's how those songs used to be sung at one time, but now they're sung, we're getting ready to start the fire for this person, get ready to cremate. So you, again, like I said, you could see how we've taken some of our songs and we've changed them around to mean what we're doing here. Just like those boys when they sang this morning. You know, for us, all of our songs talk about the sun going down. And it comes like that because it's in recognition that the Creator, when he created the sun, it's just stood there, never moved. And finally he said, I got to make it go down or it's going to burn my people. And so it goes down. So it's always that reminder that our Creator is right here. He's going to make the sun go down. So our songs begin with that. It's a reminder of the Creator's power as that sun goes down. You know, so those very teachings and those, like my wife says, those very truths, those are our truths. We know that the sun is going to set. That's a truth. We know these things. Just like I was telling you about when that lady stood up and the people said, what are we going to do? And they said, okay, we're going to cremate 3 days. The moon leaves 3 days and it comes back. So that's a truth for us, right? We see it. We all could see it. And the medicine men are showing us because they're explaining it, because we all know that. It's not something that they just came up with. It's something we could see and we could understand. Again, taking songs and using these things to teach us, hey, we could see this. We know this truth here. It's not something that they just pulled out of a bag. You know, like I always say, that our people are people of design. They sat down and they thought these things through. It wasn't by chance. Nothing's by chance. You have chance, you have chaos. These things are designed out. Again, a way of thinking, a way of conscious, a way of these songs being taught, teaching generations after generations after generations, until somebody comes in and says, no, you stop that. You start singing these songs. You start singing this song. A song we don't even understand. A song that sounds pretty, but we don't know what it's saying. So these kind of things that were taken away from us. And then we sit today and we wonder why. Why are we kind of lost? Why are these things happening to us? Not all, but there's a lot that feel that way, that get into different things because they don't have those teachings that were taught through songs and through, different things that the church taken away from us. And, for a long time for myself, I always asked, why did God let this happen? And for a long time in my life, really. And then when I got married, and my wife here, she explained a lot to me because, when I understand their side of it, when they're coming from that book side of it, of the Bible, and then learning about those kind of things, how, different things were taken out, things were put it in, and, it's like, wait, I was told that God made this book. But then you find out over the years, well, some of these books have been exchanged, and now we have the King James Version, and it's like, wait. But then when you go back and you start to think, God gave us free will. Gave us free will. So it was men that did to us, not God. It's what men did to us, because they had free will. And even though that they didn't understand, today, when with my wife, we find out things within the Bible like, wow, this is, it becomes clear, that again, but sometimes people, they don't understand that book as well as they think they do. Because one of the things, when my wife, she's gone through different kind of churches, and I used to tell her, hey, you're supposed to be going to church on Saturday. That's the Sabbath, not Sunday. And she would argue with me, oh, no. And I said, look in your book. Look in your book. Because that's the day of what you call it. But even them took on pagan things and incorporated it into it. And even like I said, so even our belief system, today, like I said, we had songs for the death, and then we had songs for the anniversary to send them to heaven as we know it. They called those songs Chiotai, the big song. Nobody knows them no more. Nobody knows all of our songs have a story and a beginning and an ending to it. And so they go all through the night. People don't know those songs no more. They don't know, they know a couple of songs here and there, but we don't know how all the songs that were sang at that time. But we do know is they did incorporate some of our stuff into that anniversary. Like today, when we have an anniversary of somebody, they'll put 3 boxes, 1, 2, 3. And today, even a lot of our own people don't know what that means. But those 3 boxes mean the 3 days that Jesus was in the tomb. Because our version of this, of our own way of doing this, was that we created an image. And that image, that doll that we made, the spirit would go into that doll. And then after the ceremony, they would take it and burn that doll, and it would release the spirit to heaven as we know it. But the church was like, well, we gotta put our hand in there too, so we're gonna put these 3 boxes, And you're just like the doll you're making, well, we're going to capture that spirit into these, just like Jesus was in that tomb. You don't need to make your image no more, you know. Just, you use this. So you could see how they knew that they couldn't take everything away because we probably wouldn't follow it. So they made sense on how to, well, you know, in our story, Jesus was in this tomb for 3 days, and then, you know, he gets released. Well, that's what you guys could do, you know, instead of making that image, well, you know, because that was the same concept of ours, is that once we made that image, the spirit would go into it. And all night, you know, the different nights, they would take that image and they would dance it. That ceremony went from anywhere from 7 to 4 days, depending on the family. But the church, like I said, came in, then they changed it a little bit. And so a lot of people think we don't do that crook ceremony anymore. And I tell them, we still do it. We just do a different version of it because the church came in, they changed some of it. But all of that is our way of thinking. And they incorporated these things into it. Again, you know, trying to take us away of our own way of thinking, our own way of learning. And, you know, like I said, these songs have, just like I was teaching, that's telling you that song, they're talking about that. You know, here's the mockingbird. Just like the boys, like I said, they were singing, the sun's going down. Second song they sang was to get up and dance. And it's not really to get up and dance the way we sing it. It's really saying that mathai, meaning we're in this new land. Old people's like, we're in this different realm. Now our ancestors could come down, they're going to dance with us. They're going to dance with us now until we send them back home. So that's what they were singing about. Hey, we're, you know, they're here with us. They're going to be here in spirit with us. And then they talked about the coyote, how he's coming. You know, the coyote, he's coming in the night where you can't really see him. And the way the people believe is that, who's the coyote here? Who's the coyote? You know, who's the one that got the negative thoughts about what we're doing here? Who's the one that, you know, there's always, that's the way the people. But again, it's all about choice. You could be the coyote or you cannot. You don't have to be. But he's here. That thing is still here, you know. Who is it? It doesn't have to be anybody, but who's acting like that? So that's what they talk about on that coyote. And then, so the next song that they sang, talking about the coyote's gone. And that song comes in the morning. Because now what we're saying is, we beat him. We beat that coyote. He's gone now. And the one that's always watching him is the nighthawk. The nighthawk, that's what that song's saying. The nighthawk's there watching the coyote leave. Like I said, in the songs that we're singing at nighttime, that's when he's coming. He's trying to use that as the camouflage to be here, to be amongst the people, to try to create commotion or, you know, like I said, you know, just that negativity. Because that when we're singing and we're doing, and, you know, and now we're finding that, you know, that these songs and these things create a vibration that soothes you. Like I always tell people, look, we're like a song. Our heart beats. Our heart beats. Our brain's got waves in it. And when there's something wrong, when you heart's not good, it's not beating good, there's something wrong. Yes, you're not in that motion. That's what these songs are doing. They're putting you into that thing. That's why you're able to see these different things if you're into it. But your mind and your body and your spirit has to be into it. When you sing You give it your all. That's what they used to tell us. You give it your all. You don't half-ass it. You give it your all. You'll see it. Meaning that you'll see this things open up. That's a power that it has that was trying to be taken away from us. Because when you take that away from us, we can't see through some of the things that you're trying to make us do. That's just wrong. That's what that power of music. And like I said, we don't know how much we've lost because of all those songs, the different styles of songs that we had. Every one of them with a different gourd sound to it. Not the, one of the things that some of the anthropologists that came around, they were saying, you could distinguish when they sang a different style of song. It was different from the one that they sang before, just the way the gourd was played. So most people could come and say, oh yeah, there's a different style going on because the gourd playing is different. So you could imagine all these different songs that like I said, everything we did had music that went along with it. If we were out picking acorns, if we were out there picking grass, one of the things that I read from Ed Davis, and he recorded a Karuk ceremony in 1906. It was actually my great-great-great-grandfather's clan. It was the last one that was done in Weipai, and because they knew the songs. And one of the things that he talked about, they were going to go get the wood to build the house. And the only thing they took with them was a gourd rattle. And the rattle, because what they were going to do was they were going to go out there and pray and ask for these things to sacrifice so that we could do this ceremony. That's what these songs did, was to give homage. Hey, I'm going to use you. I'm going to need you. Forgive me, but I need to take from you. Even in our creation story, all we ate was mud. We didn't eat nothing else. And it was the deer that stood up first and said, you can eat me. It was the different animals that stood up and said, we can eat them, we can use them. That's how we knew how to do those things. Those are the way that, not to take advantage of them, but to use them in the right way, respecting them in a way that was going to help us. One of the things that really different between our belief system and Christianity was we're equal to everything. We're not above anything. We're not above the plants. We're not above the animals. We're equal to them. We're the same. And the other thing is we didn't have a hell. Everybody's going to go to that same place. Those are two major differences that we had. And those things, because again, knowing that you cannot take advantage of an animal, you cannot take advantage of the plants. Those things were here to help us. And they gave us that permission to use them. But again, like I said, we've had now many years of Catholicism, a lot of that knowledge being lost. Even in my great-grandmother's time, even then, they knew these songs. I always say, my great-grandmother, they knew all these different styles of songs. They would sing with different people. Then her kids were my great-uncles. They sang country songs. They didn't sing our songs. And they had, good voices. They probably could have cared, but they rather sing country songs. When I came along and there was no other young people learning it, well, I was like, I'm going to learn this. You know, how kind of all started was, when I was in 3rd grade, and they were talking about our people, and they were talking about the crook ceremony, and I'm like, I've never heard that. I don't. So I went home, told my parents, and they're like, oh, we don't do nothing like that. I don't know where they got that at, and then my great-grandmother came over and she goes, no, we still do that. This is how, and then talked about the anniversary and talked about what that ceremony was. Because it hadn't been done for so long and we lost our own meaning of it. So even today, a lot of our own people don't, they'll do that anniversary, but because they're going to put the headstone up. Because for our people, you couldn't put the headstone up because they weren't gone yet. Until we did that ceremony, then now we're sending them to heaven. But through that night, as we were going through those nights, it was to build that bridge from the spirit world to our world where we would go. And and so you can imagine how important that is. But we've lost those beliefs. Now people just go, oh, I'm going to put up a headstone. Well, the old people say they're stuck here. Nobody sent them. Nobody's sending them to heaven as we know it. Because they're not doing the ceremony that's supposed to be done correctly to send them to heaven. So they're here, they're stuck. That's what our people the old people would say. But today our young people, they don't know. They don't know. And it's not their fault. Like I said, when you have a force that's pushing and saying, don't think like this, don't be like this, you need to be like this today. You need to, unfortunately today, you need to be a consumer, not a builder of anything or think anything. Just you need to be able to buy and consume. Where our world was nothing like that. It was not about consuming. Like I said, it was about designing, thinking it through. Sit down, like a lot of times when I'd go to ask old people about different things, they'd tell me, well, okay, let me think about that. They never would come and just, let me think about that. And today, again, because sit down and maybe, like we heard today from Carrico, dream about it. You're working so much with it. It'll come to you in your dreams. It'll come to you. Even my old chairman used to say that. He goes, when I couldn't figure nothing, I couldn't come up with an answer. I'd have to go home and dream about it. And it would come to me. It would come to me. But that was considered taboo. That's how our people did different things. But when this religion came in and says, you no longer can do these kind of things, well, so today, when we look at our children, this is where my wife's going to come in and talk about that part.
Well, this he just asked me last night, so I was just been thinking like, oh Lord. But some of the things that he touched upon, we've had many discussions in regards to this Western linear way of being. And so when we moved away from our traditional knowledge, we've adapted. In fact, it's like trying to make the analysis of a fish in a water. A fish doesn't know anything other than what they've been living in. And so to differentiate, being outside of water, they have to experience that. So it's looking at alternative ways of coming up with thought processes. And I was telling my husband, and he did a good job in terms of describing the analogy of the train. And I said, well, go beyond that and looking at alternative ideas and thought processes where you're laying the railroad tracks down in order for you to drive that knowledge through. And it's not going to be possible if you don't have alternative ways of thinking. when we're just stuck within this Western frame of mind and we've adapted it and it's part of our whole being in some sense that it's really our core belief system. And when I work with a lot of my clients, I work with identifying some of their error way of thinking in order for them to bring change into the life, the more preferred changes. And the core belief system is, where do we get our thought processes from, our feelings from, all of that. And it's really literally from the environment that we grew up in. It's the culture that we grew up in, all these things. And we're, today in this Western knowledge where we're just so embedded in it. And so growing up on the reservation, I was telling my husband that, the fact that we were privileged to grow up on the reservation to where we've had that traditional theoretical framework to be able to draw from. Because that, for one, was our first framework when it was constructed for us. And being told our traditional knowledge base, our culture, our ceremonies, our practices, and stuff like that. And in that sense, that helped in terms of building the railroad tracks to be able to think outside the box of Western way of being. Because this Western linear way is so restricting for us. It's so restricting. And so a lot of times, it's like, well, I only have A, B, C in terms of dealing with some of the problems that I have to deal with on a daily basis. And what are going to be my alternative ideas for that if I only have constructed A, B, and C? So the traditional knowledge base that I draw from, it helps me go from A to Z, and I have multiple solutions in dealing with my problems for today, rather than having to go through this cycle of, well, I only have this limited mindset in dealing with problems, and it's not working. So then my coping mechanisms and how to deal with these problems is not effective, and so therefore I have to go to other means in terms of, what we call the secondary conditions, which is alcoholism. You're looking at maladaptive behaviors and stuff like that, and not really addressing, well, the primary condition is my core belief system, my error way of thinking, because when I'm told and I'm brought up and taught that, Indians are deficient, Indians are not enough, Indians are just drunks, Indians are no good, and this is what the condition of environment that I was brought up in, and mainly a lot of Indians that live on the reservation. And then so when we try and step outside of that, we're not, because we're not given the script to say, hey, you know what, I'm so much more, and my belief system and myself is really tainted in some sense of what has been ascribed to me because of how I've been conditioned. And so I can't think outside of that. So basically, when I look at my core belief system, I don't really evaluate, the cognitive distortions that I have bought into about myself and about my community. And so therefore, I'm over here perpetuating it. So basically, here I am. If I'm a part of a community, if I'm in a leadership, and I'm over here progressing a lot of the problems in our community because of this core belief system that I bought into, this error way of thinking, and not correcting it, then there's, it's just going to be perpetuated from generation to generation to generation. And so it's really identifying, well, what are some of the things that I have bought into, and evaluating it and really thinking, well, is this really is this how I really see myself? And being told over and over and over, we're taught not to question it, just to think that, a lot of the research that's based on us is really looking at pathological outcomes and highlighting that rather than looking at alternative outcomes. And so people buy into that as well, and looking at, well, they're deficient, and here's proof of it. Here's factual information of it on the research, which is really skewed anyway, and it's coming up with, well, no, we're not dealing with, how the method in itself in doing the research is not really accurate. And so it doesn't really measure out, our traditional thought processes. It doesn't value it. And so, again, always looking at the deficient self. So, I was telling my husband, we get into these discussions because I'm working on my third dissertation because, again, it's like having to change my topic and my methodology because my second dissertation was, well, you know what, intergenerational trauma, historical trauma, is not validated. And therefore, you're going to have to change your dissertation because we're not going to sign off on it. And if you want to continue in the argument of this, maybe you should go down to a university that is more watered down in their standards. But we're not going to lower our standards. And saying that, you know, this historical trauma piece is valid. And so it was just, you know, a traumatizing in itself. And so it's looking at these core belief systems about American Indian students. And so, again, it's having to change that within the whole curriculum of graduate school. And saying that, you know, our traditional knowledge base is just as good. And so when we've adapted this Western linear way of thinking, we develop maladaptive coping mechanisms to deal with some of the problems that we have to deal with that comes across on a daily basis, because problems are going to come to us in waves on a daily basis. And if we don't have alternative solutions for it, we are not going to do well with it. And so we are going to do things that are, you know, is going to be more, I guess, an easier way out in terms of managing our pain and our suffering and stuff like that. So what I looked at in terms of this whole past year is what I really learned a lot in terms of helping a particular population that was struggling with the deficient model. And so it was looking at their thought process and changing their way of thinking, their error way of thinking, and giving them alternative ideas on how to look at themselves and their situation. And that was more of a vehicle of a empowerment, more of a positive psychology approach. And so it's laying down those railroad tracks for them to be able to expand their idea is beyond the box of Western knowledge. And it was thinking outside that box and being very creative. And this is where the discussion came in with my husband in terms of looking at that traditional knowledge piece to help in terms of helping us think outside that box, a whole different way of being. And like you guys stated, dreaming and coming up with solutions. That's an alternative way. That's thinking outside the box, because you have knowledge that comes in many different forms. You know, it's like a metamorphosis of things that are still in the progress, and it's still a process that's taking place. And that's how I work with my clients, is like, okay, you know, we're in a metamorphosis state. We haven't really evolved or come to a conclusion yet, but we're in the process of it. But that's what is so beautiful about this, is the process of how we can develop and construct alternative ways of being that is more natural for us. Something that is not unnatural is the Western knowledge thought base, where it's just so restricting. And you can only live so far a linear way. And so it's just coming up with alternative ideas. And the traditional knowledge base is so alive that, you know, when I think about our ceremonies and the purpose and the symbolism behind it, and how it's like a portal of getting us into a whole new different dimension, a whole new way of being. And that's how it was prior to the colonization process. And that's what we need to get back into, because again, I'm looking at, trying to think, I'm all over the place, but you know how the songs, it is a coping mechanism in so many ways. And basically it helps us to go beyond that linear way of thinking to where we're looking at really alternative ways of living, alternative ways of being alive and being influential. And it would have been nice to have stolen, you know, those songs out of Death's suitcase so that we would have it today in our present. And so that would be one of my recommendations, is to start recording, start writing, start doing whatever we need to do to be able to steal what we have today out of Death's suitcase, so that those generations after us will have this, and at least have many things intact for them that they can maybe, you know, bridge across in their own ways, in their own creativity, and having to, I guess, bring that whole piece back to us, the wholeness of what we were so much when we were, I guess, basically healthy, alive, where we could tap into multiple frequencies to be able to manage our healing, or receive our healing. And that's what I'm grateful for, because we just went to a ceremony a few days ago where you look at, those songs and how it's like a portal going into that spiritual place, that realm, and bringing back those, those things that govern that spiritual world to the present for that patient that was receiving that ceremony. And so, again, it's thinking outside that Western box that, my grandmother always says, it doesn't make sense to me, Jodine, that you have to, your patients have to go and see you for how many weeks before they feel any relief or any sense of wellness. Because she was saying it doesn't make sense that you have to wait for that when we have ceremonies that it's done automatically, instantly. And so she was saying that it's almost like you're thinking backward in so many ways. And that opened my eyes up to, yeah, you're right. You're right. It's operating in a whole different realm. And so it's identifying that, this traditional knowledge that we have that's been taken from us, it's very important that we bridge it back together so that we have that peace to where we can tap into that frequency and to be able to adapt and grow. Because just the way things are going now and how things are happening to where, there's talk about China being one of the major leaders in the world that's coming up, it's like, how, as an Indian community, are we going to deal with this? And so there's just so much that we are going to have to prepare for, to be able to plan ahead so that we're going to be able to survive and be okay. So there's a lot to do.
Well, again, when we tell the young people that, you're not the first, that you might be going through something, you're not the first one to experience that. Other people have. You're not the first, you're not the last, but you're not alone. And so again, trying to give them that reassurance that sometimes, and that's what a lot of these songs are about: traveling, going different places, or, so again, what the teachings there is that, again, you're not the first one to experience some of the things that you are. In other words, don't give up on it, because a little bit further, things are going to change again. It's going to get better. But it's, again, it's the ups and downs of it. Even this, the gourd itself. The old people would say, this is your wife. Young man, when he picks up the gourd, this is your wife, they'd say. It's very fragile. You drop it, it'll break. But what it's doing, it's training you to be a good husband. That again, you're not going to hit your wife because she's fragile, just like this. That's what the training of this is. That's why, I see a lot today, the women want to pick this up, and it's like, no, that was considered taboo. It's the men that play this. And there's, like I said, there's reasons for this, because, again, this is his wife. It's training him how to take care of this. And when he learns how to take care of this, he's going to learn how to take care of his wife. So there's those teachings that again, luckily some of it got passed down to us, but I mean, there's just so much more that got lost. But all we have to do is find it again, and there's different mechanisms to find these things again. I don't know if Mike's in here, but there was a thing in the desert. They called it the spokes wheel. It was just this round thing, and it had these things going out and had a circle around it. And none of our people were alive to know what that was. And so Mike goes and he takes it, and he ends up saying, this is it's pointing, these things are pointing to different stars and different things. So what he did was to able to take this knowledge that he got out, from school, and bring it back and to us to relearn something again. So that knowledge is still out there. We just have to be able to pull it back in. And so it's never, like I said, it's kind of lost, but it could be found. It was just that we had to put that work into it. And today, just like earlier, Jamie was asking about, what do we think about Native American Month? And I was telling her, it's not something that all of a sudden they came and said, hey, why don't we have Native American Month? It was because what we were pushing forward, what we are doing out there and saying, look, you need to start recognizing, you need to start having this understanding. But not in a forceful way, but within an understanding way. Because, when people can see and you can explain the right and the wrong of it, most people are going to say, yeah, that's wrong, all right, And there's going to be some that, yeah, they know it's wrong and they don't care. All right, that's all right. But there's going to be a lot more people out there that's saying, yeah, these things are not right. How do we rectify it? How do we change it? And again, it comes back to us, what is that answer? And sometimes we don't even know what that answer is either yet, because we've been in this mode of survival that, that sometimes it's hard to get out of that thinking and to know what's best for us, and moving forward. But again, like I said, there's a lot of teachings that that were our music and it's not just that teaching, but it's a way of thinking. It's a way of thinking as well as it's our because like a lot of times when my mother was here, and I'd ask her, Mom, I want to say this. Now tell me in Indian how to say it. And she was like, that's not how we talk. I'll tell you how I would say it, but it's not going to come out like English, like what you're saying here, because that's not some of these things the way we talk or the way we think. Like somebody asked me, oh, how do you say rest in peace? And I'm like, I guess you probably could say, every word for rest and peace and stuff like that, but it's not something how we would talk. It's not how we think like that. Just like, like a lot of us will say, we don't say goodbye, we say, we'll see you. And as a boy, I asked my mom, why did we say that? And she said, because, if you went down the road and something happened to you, that's not the end. At the end, we'll see each other again some way, talking about in the next world, we'll see each other again. That's why we say that. We'll see you. Because when I would say that at school to my friends, they'd look at me like, what are you talking, that don't make sense. I'll see you. But really, when our way of thinking, it does make a lot of sense. We'll see you. So again, that's that way of thinking and the way of doing things. Like I said, some people might say, well, it's really simple, but our language was very descriptive. It didn't leave chance out there that, I'll just take it like this. No, just like, and it's hard, I try to learn my language too. And, like, one of the things that like uncle, we don't have a word for, for just uncle. It's either your mother's younger brother, middle brother, older brother, but there's a word for each one of it. Because they knew exactly, when you were talking about your uncle, they knew exactly which one you were talking about, on your mother's side and the oldest one. Because that's how they talked. It wasn't just like, today I could say uncle, and they're like, well, which one is he talking about? Mother's side, father's side? In our language, it was very, no, you're talking about your mother's brother, and it's the older one, and, so it was very descriptive. And so sometimes when, like I said, when I try to ask her something in English, she'd say, well, that's not how we talk. I can't say it like that. Or I can, but it don't make sense to us. That's what she would say. And over the years talking with Langdon, she said sometimes even the way we talk English is a way of our language. It's not, 'cause, like my wife's always correcting me. It's got to be like this. But I'm talking like how our people talked. But again, like I said, so these are the things that that a lot of these things got taken away from us, a way of thinking, a way of doing things, and even how to solve these different problems, as they arise. Again, like my wife saying, thinking outside that box, and we all know that. How many times sometimes we listen to a song and it brings back a memory. Oh, I remember that song being played when we were doing this. Or, again, those are those things that it's going outside that box where I can listen to a song, it means this to me, and my wife can listen, it means something different to her. It's all within our interpretation of our, again, of our upbringing and how we're using it. Because, my wife here, she's Navajo, from a Navajo reservation, and I'm Kumiai, and we don't always see, things the same, because their people did things differently than my people did. And so, but again, it's those things that, that we've lost a lot of it by the church. And, and like I said, it's not about putting blame there. It's because even themselves didn't understand their own religion. And we see it, because at that time it was only Catholicism. There was no other churches at that time. And then, as you could see them evolving, here comes Martin Luther coming in and say, hey, let's look at this a little bit different. And now you see all these other ones now taking this book and saying, here's a different way of looking at it. And again, that's them evolving. And the truth of the matter, we were way ahead of that. And now we're going kind of backwards, and so, so that's why we see sometimes some of the problems that we have within our communities, because a lot of this kind of stuff was taken away from us. And when we talk about this historical trauma and stuff like that, where they're telling my wife, well, you can't validate that. Well, what do you mean you can't validate that? How could you say that? But that's what they're saying. And, so telling her, change your dissertation, and it becomes, it's just wrong, and here you have a place of higher learning that's doing that. And that's where, again, as our own people, we have to infiltrate some of these things and start telling the truth about what has happened here and why we still deal with some of the things that we still deal with today. Because, we heard people talk about earlier about tradition and culture and, all these different things and culture and stuff like that, it all changes. It changes over time. It's never the same. It evolves, and so. But again, it should evolve in a right way, in a way of thinking that's making things better, and because a lot of our people get caught up in, well, I can't do that because that's not traditional, like I've seen people like say. We can't use a backhoe. It's not right. We got to dig it. And it's like, well, I got an old digging stick at my house that Shippeck gave me that came from one of our tribal members. And it's ironwood, and it's heavy, and it's got a sharp point to it. But sitting there trying to dig with that thing, it's going to take you damn all day. When you could go get, you know, when a shovel came along, our people were smart enough to say, shit, this shovel works pretty good. And now there's a backhoe. Shit, that even works better. It's our own way of thinking that sometimes that holds us back from even going further. And you know, so we've been stagnated where we're not making no new songs, we're not making no new sites, we're not doing a lot of things because we've been told you're never going to get beyond this. You people are right here, and it's a miracle you're still here today. And you know, and you shouldn't be. But what are we doing to create better? That, you know, that's where we need to move forward, you know, and to help our people to thrive, because we were always a thriving people. You know, we've lived here, you know, for thousands and thousands of years through droughts, through different things. And it's because we've always had somebody's thinking and dealing with these things. And today, we sit here and we're saying, how do we deal with our people that don't want to move forward? And they get caught up in thinking that because I can't move forward because it's going to make me not traditional. No, you know, some like these things here, this music, it's old, but there's a lot of teachings in it. But how do we bring those teachings forward? You know, like I say, you know, like a lot of our stories had a lot to do with animals and their movements and their things that they're doing. And yet, today, our kids are just like everybody else. It's right here on these damn phones. And oh, what is that? I don't, well, that's a scorpion. Well, does it sting? Well, yes, it does. But they don't know nothing about that. So how can you tell a story about that? Because they don't even know what it is. So how do we bring our knowledge into today's thinking in a way that, again, always do what is right? That's what we need to teach them, always to do what is right. Those things have not changed, right and wrong. They have not changed. And that's what we have to have, that understanding of our own people that, again, as long as we stay know right from wrong, we can move forward.
But not only that, not just doing what's right, but even having the courage and being brave enough to do it, and not be so concerned about what other people might think or say, and that is in itself. But a lot of the traditional knowledge base is what's going to help us to be able to think outside of just that linear way of thinking, because one of my favorite scholars is Robert Berghofer, and he made the statement that basically that, you know, that it's coming from the white man's book where, you know, what is it, the white man's Indian, where he said that basically we're the ventriloquist dummy, where the ventriloquist is the one that's telling us how to think, how to talk, how to behave, all this stuff. And when are we going to stop being the ventriloquist dummy and move outside of that? And that was very, very powerful, because we're conditioned. We're conditioned to say that this is our truth. You know, this is your truth, this is your knowledge, and that's it, and not even question it. And when we start to look at alternative ways of looking at the knowledge that's been given to us and whether or not we buy into it, you know, we need to be critical thinkers and to be able to construct our own ideas and ways. And that traditional knowledge base is what helps us. At least, you know, it helps us to have avenues outside that linear way of thinking. There are alternative ways of thinking about things. And when you have at least that door opening, you can do many things outside of that.
Well, when you use your truths, like I said, like I was telling you that story of the lady. So what they used was the truths, things that they could see and understand. Then now that we have to make this change. So again, it's given you the power to make changes. That when things happen, how do we deal with it? Well, we use the things, our truths, to set us free, to make that change, to give us that understanding, and we can make that change because we see it within our truths. So we've always had that. So I'm saying, this is nothing new to us. We've always had these things to sit there and say, okay, this came up, this is brand new to us. Okay, this is how we're going to deal with it. We're going to use our own truth to have that understanding and make that change. That's where right now we're kind of stagnated. We're like she said, we're afraid to make that jump forward. And then afraid of our own people criticizing us. Well, that's not traditional, that's not, and that's what holds us back. That's what's holding us back. Because we see it today. When somebody gets educated and comes back to the reservation, they don't think like us no more. They're different, And even though that they can help us, they're more afraid of them. They're afraid of that. And it's because they're not opening their own mind. And they're afraid of that. And like I said, when you start using your own truths and you start showing your own people that, then they can't argue those things. Then they have to start embracing it. But right now, we haven't done that. And so we need to start moving forward, We are in certain things, but, we have a long ways to go. But this is our foundation. That's what we're trying to say. We got to get back to our foundation, and once we know we have good ground to stand on, we can start making those steps forward. You need a good foundation, and that's what all these things, these teachings, is giving us that foundation to move forward as a people. And that's what the church tried to take away from us. And that's what they did for a long time. But now we have to see it for what it was. Not what it is, but for what it was. We'll start to thrive again. And then that's what we have to start teaching our young people. Like my wife here, she goes into a lot of, sometimes it just goes right over my head, like, okay, give me a chance to catch up to what you're saying here, because it's critical to, again, our movement forward. Again, how do we beat these things that are holding us down? How do we get away from it? How do we get free from it? Like she said, she's helped people to break that. And we've had, that's the sad part, is that we had medicine men to do that. We had people that were there to, so because today, when our people will say, I'm not going to go see a therapist. But we've always had these people. But they forgot. They forgot we've had these people. This is what the medicine men were doing. This is what they were performing to give you that, and instead of saying, and then, the other part of it, it takes work. You have to work at it. You have to make that, to do the work. She can help you, guide you there, but it really takes you to work to do the work. And that's what we have to get our people to start. Quit sitting back and feeling sorry for yourself. We're never going to get nowhere. We have to get up and say, no, I'm not going to let that hold me back. I'm going to stand up and, even, I know this because when I was teaching young people how to sing, I had people coming to me and saying, don't be doing that. What's wrong with you? They don't, and I'm like, I don't care what you say, I'm going to do it. And I had, even with our hand game, I was told, oh, you're teaching our people how to gamble. No, this is our tradition. I'm going to do it. I don't care what you say. And then pretty soon those people were right there learning too. But they sat there and fought with me the whole way. You shouldn't be doing that. What's wrong with you? They're too young. They're not. No, that's when they need to learn. And like I said, it's like, you could say what you want, but I'm going to go forward with it.
I think you need to open up for questions.
Yeah. Yeah. Any questions?
I have a question. So I've spent a lot of my career trying to rescue bits of the lost songs. But watching you today, listening to you today, listening to you sing, it seems to me that some of what hasn't been lost is the approach, the way of being. I wonder if your grandmother or great-grandfather could hear you today, whether they wouldn't say, Junior, you got it.
I was really fortunate because it was always my family that they did some of this stuff. They were never like but all of our people did it. It's not just my own family, but some of those people were stronger than some others. And just like today, we have in our community today, we have people that are very strong, we have people that are weak, but we need to bring them along. And our ancestors are probably very proud of all of us because we're still here. I think that's I'm just trying to do my part. And just like my wife, she's doing her part. It's something that not everybody wants to do it, and that's okay. But just don't get in our way. Help us, That's the big part of it, I guess. Any other one?
Prior to Christianity, the Kumiai people never spoke of time. Everything was about place, and life wasn't food. And I started thinking about everything that makes us sick is about time. It's about regretting something from the past, or fearing the future, or heaven and hell, right? And so when you said there was no hell, and what we see with people dying from overdose, with everything that's happening that's so devastating, do you see it in that, how to ask it, like, we stopped being present. There was a stop on the ability to be present because everything was about getting here or avoiding there and time. Do you kind of feel that in what you're seeing?
It seems just that goes away, when you really sit there and concentrate on the song, that thing of time doesn't exist, it seems like, yes. That's, again, something that I'm trying, like I said, I didn't know how to explain, but somebody helped me now that I can explain it, that meditation part of it. Because I didn't know how to say it. There, even within our singing, there was questions I asked my person that taught me, and he would say, "Yes, you're getting there. You're getting there." He never told me that you're going to hear this or you're going to see this, nothing like that, because he didn't want me to. Oh yeah, I've seen that or I've heard that. He always waited for me to ask him, because I would ask him, and he'd say, "You're getting there. You're getting there." So, you know, that's one of the things that I really admired with him, because he never tainted me to think that way. It was always that when I sit there and I'd ask him about it, and then he would say, okay, yeah, you're that, you know, he would explain a bit more about, and then he, you know, say, you're getting there. You're becoming this. And so sometimes we don't tell, we can't, that's why you're not supposed to tell everything. You got to wait for that question. You have to wait for that question. And, you know, trying to teach the young people how to sing today is like, they don't want somebody to teach them. They want it YouTube, or they're going to different things and going out there just singing, and they don't know what they're singing about. They don't know, you know, they're just out there thinking that, you know, look at me. And it's never about look at me. This is for the people. It's not for you. It's not about you. It's for the people. And that's where, you know, a lot of we had a talk on this. We had different lead singers come in and talk about this from different tribes. And we had I'd say about a couple hundred people that came, young people. And we were trying to tell them, look, you need a teacher, you need a mentor. Somebody's going to mentor you in this. Because if you think that you're just going to go to YouTube and listen to it like that, well, first of all, you're not getting the meaning down. You're not getting all these things that should be coming along with it. You can't fast track it. That's what we're trying to tell them. You can't fast track this thing. You have to have a mentor, somebody that's going to mentor you into it, because you'll get so much more out of it. But just like with most young people, they want it right now. They want it now. And they're, like I said, and it's part of it. And we have parents sometimes doing it. Oh, look at my son, you know, like little kids, like, you know, this is not meant to be shown off or anything like that. It's not to be look cute. It's something that was given to us that we do, and it takes years to get there. But they don't understand that. They want it right now. So we're kind of having that right now with a lot of our young people, because they want it real fast, and they're not getting all the teachings that come along with it. Again, to be able to ask these questions, hey, this happened to me, what does that mean? Well, okay, let me explain it, because like I said, they're not going to, we were told, you don't talk about that. You let them come to ask you about it, and then you could talk about it, because you don't want to taint them, making them thinking like, oh, yeah, I heard this, and, you know, like, no, you really don't want that, because they're fooling themselves, and that's what you don't want.
You know, I think that you hit on a subject that I've been very, very curious about, because when I was doing a couple of research that talked about our life outside of time, I think that is key in terms of a whole different way of being, moving from linear to a multi-dimensional way of being, and how we existed prior to colonization. And I wonder about that. I wonder what life would be like, what it would look like in terms of living outside of time. Because there's just something about that knowledge that is just so, I'm just so curious about, that I think is very, very important, that I wonder. So I'm trying to figure out more ways of gathering information about that, because there's just so few information out there on it, on existence without time. And I think it was Calvin, I can't remember that scholar that first mentioned that, the work that I came across. Yes, Calvin Martin that discussed that. That was just so mind-provoking that I was just thinking, wow, kind of a thing. So he's one of the ones that I really, really enjoy reading as well. And so that's something to think about. And I believe that is one of the key factors in terms of linking us back to what you talk about in terms of getting knowledge and answers from our dreams, from other resources, other than, you know, what we think that within a classroom. So, yes.
Any other questions?
Hi, I'm interested, well, mechanisms, you're talking about dealing with trauma. I use some to deal with trauma, and I'm from Guatemala, Mayan descent, and we can create things, right? I mean, what I'm talking about is why not create something? Because I'm thinking, if you could create, you could sing, you could create maybe some that maybe can help people deal with trauma or passing down knowledge. But also because I have this, I read, there's this poet from Mayan Quiche from the highlands of Guatemala that I read, and I really internalized what he was talking about, it's in Spanish, he wrote it in Spanish, he has a book about poems about being connected with nature, right? And when I was going through a trauma that I was going through, I was reciting that poem constantly. And it really empowered me. It really gave me that power to deal with the trauma and stay calm. And this is something that he did, like he wrote it. It's contemporary stuff, like he saw nature, he was in touch with nature. He passed in 2019, but he was able to create something that I never met him. I never met this individual, but I used it as a way to deal with trauma, something to heal, right? Because I was fortunate enough someone gave it to me, someone passed it down to me, and I had it, and I really read it, and I learned some of the poems, and I would recite them. And so, I was just wondering, like, how come not make something? If we talking about lost songs, how can we here today, we can create for people, or is that going against what you're talking about, the traditional way that it was passed down from somebody, from a creator? But I'm just wondering, like I'm passing down this knowledge to my son. Like we recite this poem every day before we go to sleep. And I'm telling them this is a poem that can empower you at times of if you're feeling alone, if something's going on. So I'm just wondering about that. Why not create something and that is contemporary, but it's something that is coming from the same idea of passing down knowledge? What do you think about something like
Yeah, I think that's, again, that's some of the things that we have to do is we have to, because there's new traumas. So even in some of our old ways, we don't have ways to deal with that trauma because it's something that's new. So we have to create new ways of dealing with that trauma. So yes, I think that, yes, we have to. That's why, we always have to keep creating because there's new things that are coming that we've never dealt with before, and we don't have ways to deal with it. Like my wife says that sometimes they don't have ceremony for some of the things that because they've it's something that they never dealt with, but so I'm sure pretty soon they're going to be creating new ways of how to deal with those kind of things because like I said, there's different things that are happening that we even in our own ways, we didn't have ways to dealing with that. So we have to create new ways because the atmosphere and the things are different now than so you have to create a new way of dealing with it.
I like what you said about the words and the poetry behind it because, you know, part of the healing, the right brain is very creative and creativity. So you're looking at all of that to help with the healing process of it. But just recently, and it's just something that I've experienced recently, was basically the idea, and it did come to me in a dream, in terms of how I had been dealing with this horrific experience of traumatization in an institution, being an American Indian woman at that, in this institution, but I didn't have the words or the ways of dealing with it. And then so finally it dawned on me that I need to construct that wording to be able to work towards and bridging that healing process. So it was like I was explaining to my chair at the time, was that, well, you know what, I ran out of tracks. I ran out of road. I went to, you know, the level that I should go to, and there's nothing there. I said I bought into a lie saying, you know, the people telling me all this crap, and I bought into it. But guess what? It only led to this end, and that's a dead end. And I need path beyond that to help me to be able to continue on this journey. And so what I learned was, yeah, I had to symbolically, metaphorically, and try and write out my own pathway in order for me to move beyond. And finally, that idea of the wording of it and then building the tracks on it was what was helpful in moving me past and beyond to where I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm not going to buy into the BS of what you tell me. I'm so much more. I'm this. And then, you know, and then I had my ex-in-laws tell me in Navajo, this is who you are, so you got to say this in Navajo. And as I'm coming across some really difficult terrain, and I'd repeat over and over in my language, I am this, I am this, I am, you know, strong, I am a strong Indian woman, I am a strong, you know, student and all this stuff. And that is what has empowered me. And I can't explain it really, because there's a whole new source of power that comes in, that I'm like, yes, you know, I'm no longer going to buy into this. I'm going to, you know, write my own script. I'm not going to follow the script that they've given me and saying that this is all you're going to go to, Jodine. This is as far as you're going to get. That's it. And I'm like, no, let me rewrite this and let me go beyond that. And then that way I have a pathway for that. And then so that in some ways it's empowerment. So, and that's why I'm like, yeah, I can look at our colonization process in a negative way, or I can look at it and translate it in something that is empowering me. So I'm resilient. Yeah, you know, we are people of resilient. I come from a whole long line of resilient people. And that's how I'm going to rewrite this whole experience, because it's the meaning that I'm changing to the experience that's empowering. And that's what gives me liberty to be able to say, yeah, you know what, bring it on now, you know, because I can do more things now.
Well, the thing is, if you have hope, then you'll have will. And that's what it takes, is you got to have hope. And when you have hope, you'll have the will. And that's what that's will take you on to your next, to deal with that very issue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just wanted to offer gratitude. My name is Mary. I'm from the San Bernardino area, so occupied land. And I wanted to offer gratitude for sharing the song and also sharing the words. I was in Murrieta with a group of indigenous Native First people from the desert. So I really loved your explanation about the desert. And there was we were there to protect the child migrants that were being brought from Central America and different areas in a time that there was a lot of violence. There were police, there were white supremacists, and there was a lot of indigenous community. And I was a witness to folks using song and ceremony to stop violence and prevent violence, to bring healing and also protection of the community of the children. So I was wondering if you could talk about that a little bit. Songs and ceremony and music has also been used to protect us.
Well, I mean, you know, again, you know, it's song has that music. Really, what it is, it's music has it has no barriers. You know, like I was saying, like I was saying earlier about the Spanish hymns, they're very pretty. I really like the way they're sung. They're just very beautiful melodies. Didn't understand a word what it was saying, but I did like the melody, and that's, that's what it could change your frame of mind. Like I said, that's why, you can listen to a song and sometimes it'll take you right back to a memory. Sometimes it's not always a good memory either. It could take you back to a bad memory, or it'll take you to a good memory. But it always brings back a memory sometimes, And so that's the ability of music. It does calm, It does do that calming of things.
The frequency. You're tapped into a frequency.
Yeah.
Explain it to her.
Well, like again, you're talking about the different frequencies of that of those sounds that kind of again it within your brain, within your heart, it has that ability, and
because you have a choice between a positive or a negative frequency that you can choose to tap into.
Yeah, like my wife was saying, that you can have either a positive or a negative to that frequency. It's all depending on yourself, or even sometimes people, if there's enough people, if they're feeling that positive, they can change the whole atmosphere. They can change that atmosphere to be a positive one, even with the people that are being negative.
Mm-hmm.
It'll kind of drown them out, and it'll just make that positive. And so, it has that ability, and that's why, like I said, for our people, music was really a big part of who we were. And, like I said, we had songs that were for sad times, for the funerals, and we had songs that were sang for good times. And again, it was to put you in that state, or, even our ways of a long time ago, if you came across somebody and you seen their hair was very short, or they had black on their face, right away you knew they're in mourning. So what that gave you was that be careful with your words, because they're in mourning. You don't, so they might not want to be laughing. They might, so so when this person approached you, you had to think about what do I say, because I could see they're going through something. And so we had different ways of looking at things. Even the color red and black. Red was a woman's color. And it was because they were the blood. They are the blood of the people. Black, the men were black because we couldn't have kids. We couldn't, we can't give birth. And so again, those same colors meant life and death. So these things, they had meanings to them. So that when you came across some of these things, you would know, again, that what was going on here, what was happening. So I mean, and there's a lot of that, like I said, that it's changed over time. And even like our creation story, it's not just about the story.
When is this over?
It's about the interactions. Like we have two creators, one's older, one's younger. And the older one, we're always looking to the older one because he's older. And that frame of mind was to tell us, that's why you respected your elders, because they know things that you don't know, because they've lived life and they know these experiences. So that's why you gave them that respect. You listened to what they had to say, because they could teach you. And one of the first things that the Creator gave to us was tobacco. Took it from his heart. Here, I give it to you. Again, teaching us how to give. Because when we took that tobacco, what we were going to do was it was used to pray to him. So it was going to come right back to him. But he showed us how to give first, then to learn how to receive. So just those kind of, within that creation story, there's a lot of teachings like that in there. That here, so most people just look at, oh, it's just a story about creation. No, there's a lot of things that go along with that. That's why they used to say it takes 4 days to tell. Because there's all these little nuances in there that you had to give to get that understanding. So again, that's where, trying to bring those things forward again, because again, that's the way of thinking. That's the, what do they call that?
It's our
Philosophy.
Yeah.
Philosophy.
Philosophical framework.
So that's where a lot of that philosophy comes from. It comes within that creation story. And just like I was saying, like in the songs, it's not just songs, but there was teachings that went along with it that said, okay, this is how to look at this song. This is how you look at these different things. It's not just the song, but here's what it plays. This is the role that it plays in it. So again, like I said, it always goes in deeper. And so again, trying to teach these younger people that these are just not songs, but you have to look at the deeper meaning of it, because it's going to open your eyes and your mind. It's not just that you're just singing here. It's actually open your mind and your eyes. You don't have a mentor that's teaching you this. You're not going to learn that. You're not going to learn those things. That's why you need a mentor, somebody that's going to mentor you into all of this. And it's hard. Like I said, right now, it's kind of hard to teach our young people because they just I want to sing, And that's good. That's a good thing. But you have to learn what comes along with it, the ins and outs of it,
So we've taken a lot of
Okay.
whatever, energy and intelligence, and want to